Marvel, fishing in the skies. Starting with the Ghost Swordsman legacy, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51. Seeing Hulk like this, Tony and May Parker were both in a state of confusion. But now the main thing is to fight. The two immediately adjusted their mentality and attacked the Dark Elves. The rest of the hero apartment and others also rushed into the battlefield one after another. Venom transformed into a small spider, one black and one red. The two spiders cooperated in the battlefield with magic. The interweaving of black and white spider silk quickly solved a dozen Dark Elves. Damn it, are these people really from Earth? When did so many powerful beings appear on Earth? Seeing the bravery of the hero apartment, the three elders of the Dark Elf clan couldn't help but utter a low curse, and a trace of panic flashed in his eyes. He is really a little panicked now. Now Asgard hasn't made a move yet. Their warriors have suffered heavy losses. If this continues, they are almost doomed to fail. Second and third elders, let all the elites take action, and you too, must deal with these earthlings, otherwise, it will be really troublesome. The elder said coldly at this time. He stared at Hulk, like a venomous snake hiding in the dark. Follow the orders of the elder, the second and third elder said in unison. Then they immediately raised the staffs in their hands. With a flash of red light, thousands of Dark Elves emerged from the dark sky again. These Dark Elves were all wearing armor or robes. Apart from anything else, just from the aura, these Dark Elves are more than 3 times stronger than those ordinary Dark Elves. Sure enough, a dog can't change its eating habits. These dark guys really have a backup plan. Seeing this situation, Odin's one eye flashed with a brilliant light. Warriors, kill the enemy with me, the elder's old voice sounded, and then he rushed directly towards Hulk. In a flash, he appeared in front of Hulk. Faced with this sudden appearance, Hulk was obviously stunned for a moment. But he quickly reacted. With a crooked smile, he threw his fist as big as a sandbag directly at the Dark Elf elder. Chapter 449. Fighting the elder. Bang! With a loud bang, Hulk's fist hovered in the air, as if there was an invisible wall blocking Hulk in front of him. The elder raised the scepter in his hand. There was a cold light flashing in his eyes. Humphrey, seeing that his attack was ineffective, Hulk snorted coldly, his face full of indignation. Then he raised his fist and smashed it towards the elder again. Bang! There was another loud bang. This time, Hulk used such great force that it even formed a circle of air waves. The two unlucky Dark Elves around him had no resistance at all. They were directly blown away. The invisible barrier now set off waves of ripples, like a stone hitting a calm lake. No matter what kind of monster you are, you can't break it with brute force alone, the elder said slowly with a mocking look on his face. But he couldn't continue speaking halfway through, because the size of the Hulk in front of him had grown visibly. Then he actually used the long-lost turtle fist. The swing of his arms actually swept out a storm. Bang bang bang, the fists and the barrier kept hitting each other. The ripples of the invisible barrier began to become agitated. OMG, with such power, is he really from the Earth? The legendary Hercules is just like this, right? Wallstar, one of the 3 warriors of the Asgard in the back, saw this scene and couldn't help looking at Hogun beside him and exclaimed. Hogun heard this and nodded in surprise. At this time, he couldn't help but think of the records in Asgard. The Atrium is the weakest of the 9 realms, but judging from the performance of those from the Atrium, if they are all the weakest realm, then what is Asgard? At this time, Hogun could not help but have deep doubts about the status of Asgard as the overlord. Is Asgard having fun? At this time, the elder's eyes were wide open, looking at the scene in front of him in disbelief. He never thought that the monster in front of him could have such a terrifying power, and he never thought that the other party could have such endurance. He could attack like this without interruption. In an instant, the elder's confidence in his barrier disappeared. If this goes on, his barrier is likely to be smashed by the green monster in front of him. Gritting his teeth, the elder waved the staff in his hand. The invisible barrier disappeared directly. Hulk staggered and almost fell to the ground. But fortunately Hulk's waist was strong enough. He stabilized his body and raised his big foot of unknown size. He kicked the elder in the face. The elder didn't want to be hit by this unrecognizable foot. The elder slammed the staff in his hand to the ground. Immediately, a wave of air was set off. Hulk's body was unstable, and his big foot kicked into nothingness, falling heavily to the ground on one side. Bang! With a muffled sound, the whole ground shook 3 times. Damn green monster! Let me show you what the real dark power is. The elder looked at the footprints on the ground, and his eyes couldn't help twitching. Then he roared and raised the staff in his hand. Black smoke filled his body, and countless dark forces quickly condensed behind him. Soon, a dark elf giant more than 10 meters tall condensed behind the elder. It exuded a thick black gas. It looked quite terrifying. Hulk tilted his head and looked at the tall man who suddenly appeared. There was a bit of confusion in his eyes, but soon his eyes were replaced by the fire of battle. Who cares what the hell it is? Just do it. Hulk jumped up and looked at it, and the dark elf giant's head smashed over. Seeing this, the elder smashed the staff in his hand down. At the same time, a thing similar to a staff appeared in the hand of the dark elf giant, synchronous with the elder's actions. It hit Hulk hard. Bang! The invincible Hulk was smashed down, creating a visible air wave. The true body of the martial spirit. Qin Luo looked at the suppressed Hulk with a little surprise. I didn't expect that the great elder of the Dark Elves had something, but if I want to defeat Hulk completely, this amount of power may not be enough. Chapter 52, Maypark, Nightshade, Johnny, Ganada. All flew forward. Venom turned into a leviathan and carried the remaining people who could not fly. All the members of Hero Apartment went out to attack. Feeling the movement behind him, Odin turned around and his expression changed. Finally, he looked helpless and sighed for a long time, and he didn't care about the people in Hero Apartment anymore. Originally, he wanted to use the people in Hero Apartment as a surprise force, suddenly appearing and catching the Dark Elves off guard. Maybe he could defeat them in one blow. But now it seems that his wishful thinking has failed. However, he had foreseen such a scene, so it was not so unexpected. The people in Hero Apartment were originally an accident. Now letting them take the initiative is also a good thing for Asgard. Hulk, invincible. Hulk roared, and then jumped high, like a cannonball. He passed those Asgardians. He smashed towards the most densely populated place of Dark Elves. Perhaps it was because he was too excited. Hulk's muscles were obviously bigger than before. Boom! With a loud bang, Hulk landed heavily in the group of Dark Elves. The violent power spread out. Countless Dark Elves were blown away by this power. The most unlucky ones were the Dark Elves at Hulk's foothold. At this time, those people had turned into meat paste. Chapter 448 Join the battle. Stimulated by blood and the attacks of the surrounding Dark Elves, Hulk's state became more and more excited, and the anger value in his heart began to soar. At this time, his muscles were like alive, constantly squirming. Every time he squirmed, Hulk's strength would increase by 1 point. In just a few seconds, Hulk's strength increased by 30%. With Hulk's strength base, this increase can be said to be quite terrifying. Roar! Hulk's fist was like a battering ram, smashing towards the Dark Elves crazily. Every time a hammer fell, it could basically turn a Dark Elf into meat paste. The Dark Elves had no way to deal with Hulk's attack. As for killing Hulk, to be honest, these Dark Elves alone were definitely not enough. At most, they would just injure Hulk's skin. But these skin injuries were the nourishment for Hulk's anger. Looking at Hulk, who was getting braver and braver, Malekith's face was extremely gloomy. With his father-like eyesight, he could naturally see Hulk's powerful fighting power and special attributes. He treated his people like watermelons. This was really unbearable for his uncle and his aunt. Malekith had no boss style at all. He raised his hand and shot a black beam of light from the tip of his spear. The target was nothing else. It was Hulk's forehead. With Malekith's strength, if Hulk was hit by this move, he would probably lose a layer of skin even if he didn't die. However, at this critical moment, a blue flame beam fell from the sky and directly blasted away Malekith's attack. At the same time, the flames turned into sparks and fell into the tribe of Dark Elves. Under this attack, countless Dark Elves had their dark power purified by more than half. The power they were proud of could not be exerted, and basically these people were half useless. Chief of the Dark Elves, your opponent is me. Johnny's flaming wings behind him kept flapping, holding a long knife condensed by the flame of the Holy Spirit in his hand. He rushed straight to Malekith, feeling the powerful power of Johnny. Malekith's face was full of solemnity. He couldn't help but secretly complain in his heart. He never thought that Odin, who didn't want to be shameless, would actually go for foreign aid. He really didn't have the slightest confidence to deal with such a strong man, but now that things have come to this, he has to take action. Otherwise, letting the other party enter his own tribe would be a real disaster. Who are you? Why do you want to interfere in the war between the Dark Elves and Asgard? Malekith soared into the sky, with a spear in his hand across his chest, blocking Johnny's attack and questioning at the same time. Earthlings, stop talking nonsense. Johnny's wings slapped forward and slapped Malekith hundreds of meters away. Johnny followed immediately. During the fight, the two gradually moved away from the battlefield. This was Johnny's intention. Otherwise, the impact of the battle between the fathers on the battlefield would be too great. Odin slowly put away the eternal spear in his hand and looked at the figures of Malekith and Johnny fighting in the distance. He breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, there were people in the hero apartment. Otherwise, he, with his old arms and legs, would not be able to fight Malekith for a long time. Just now, because of the impact of the aftermath of the collision between Malekith and Johnny, Hulk fell directly to the ground. At this time, countless Dark Elves rushed up and pressed Hulk to the ground. Faced with such a stacked scene, Hulk had no choice for a while, and could only madly fan away the Dark Elves that pounced on him. But those densely packed Dark Elves were simply too numerous to fight. Hulk was directly trapped in an extremely embarrassing situation. Arc Pulse Cannon, Stormfoot Middle Dot Dancing. However, at this moment, Johnny and May Parker attacked together. Blue arc beams and countless wind blades directly bombarded the densely packed Dark Elves. Countless Dark Elves were blown away. Hulk immediately got a breather. Hulk is not a fool, and his combat awareness is still very strong. He took the opportunity to seize this opportunity and stood up directly. There were still a few Dark Elves hanging on his body who wanted to suppress him. Feeling Tony's extremely playful eyes behind him, Hulk only felt a strong sense of shame surging in his heart, and at the same time, there was anger towards the Dark Elves. Bastard! Hulk roared, and his muscles swelled again. Then he grabbed two Dark Elves as weapons and turned to the rest of the Dark Elves. Chapter 53. Faced with such a situation, Malekith did not dare to be careless. Black fog filled his body. The next moment, he appeared directly in front of the fleet. A spear with a bloody smell appeared in his hand. The spear exuded a curse and ominous breath. A dark beam of light shot out. Boom! The two beams collided in the starry sky, and suddenly burst out with extremely strong power. The terrifying power spread out, making Malekith's fleet unstable. However, Odin's shadow also dissipated under the tearing of this force. Dark sky! Malekith roared. In an instant, the entire Dark Elf fleet was covered by a black light. Then the black light shot towards Asgard. Now Malekith can no longer hold back his revenge on Odin and Asgard. He plans to use his own power to rush all his people into Asgard. However, how could Odin watch the Dark Elves wreak havoc in Asgard? So Odin summoned the Rainbow Bridge directly. The Rainbow Bridge collided with the dark sky in midair. It strangely formed a half-black and half-colorful battlefield. All the Dark Elves' fleets were suspended in the black area, and at the end of the colorful area was the Asgard army led by Thor and Loki. Chapter 447. The war begins. Bear child Hulk, my people, let the bastards of Asgard welcome the embrace of the goddess of death. Malekith roared, raising the dark spear in his hand. Kill! Roar! Countless Dark Elves roared, surrounded by black aura. Like a wave of black waves, they advanced forward at a high speed. The leader was a group of ordinary Dark Elves holding spears, and behind them were some special Dark Elves, some holding scepters, some holding bows and arrows, and daggers. It can be said that there are all kinds of things. However, at this time, their murderous intent has reached a certain level, and the entire connecting bridge seems to be trembling because of this murderous aura. Feeling the violent breath of the Dark Elves, the faces of the Asgardians were all full of solemnity. However, no one had the idea of retreating. After all, behind them was their homeland. For them, this war did not have the option of failure at all. Asgard must win. Asgard must win. Asgard must win. Odin roared 3 times in a row, and at the same time, golden breaths flowed out of the eternal spear, covering the warriors on the Asgard side. In an instant, the breath of the Asgardian warriors suddenly jumped up a lot. Not only that, their expressions became more determined. At this time, it is not an exaggeration to say that their character is as solid as a rock. The momentum of the Dark Elves can no longer affect them. Qin Luo, who was fishing for shrimps, was always paying attention to the changes on the battlefield here. After feeling Odin's actions, Qin Luo couldn't help but secretly give a thumbs up to the old God King in his heart. He is really worthy of being a God King who has fought for thousands of years. I didn't expect there would be such a group buff. It's no exaggeration to say that Odin's buff alone is enough to more than double the combat effectiveness of Asgard's warriors. And it's an all-round improvement. Improving 1 or 2 people is nothing. Improving so many people is a bit cruel. For Odin, the consumption is definitely not small. Asgard must win. The warriors of Asgard roared in unison. Then they moved forward step by step. The movements were neat and uniform, presenting a sharp contrast with the Dark Elves who were charging recklessly. These warriors of Asgard can definitely be called well-trained. Loki, Thor, Sif, and the 3 warriors of Asgard stood at the front of the queue, and their faces were full of murderousness. Thor's hammer in Thor's hand was flashing with lightning. This is ready to come directly with a wave of ruthless earthlings. Must win. Roar. Suddenly a roar sounded from the end of the rainbow bridge. The sound was so loud that even the 2 groups about to start a war in the distance could hear it clearly. Odin's mouth twitched, and he almost forgot that there were still those uncles from Earth. Loki and Thor shuddered all over. They were not unfamiliar with this familiar roar. The green big guy really left a deep impression on them. The power brewing in Thor's hand almost broke out in advance. Hulk, what are you doing? You scared me. What the hell? Hulk, what are you crazy about? Everyone standing in the palace behind the rainbow bridge was frightened by Hulk's shout, especially Tony and Spider-Man, who were closest to him. His head was dizzy and there were bursts of buzzing sounds in his ears. But the worst one was Daredevil. This kid has sharp 5 senses, especially his ears. Hulk's roar almost broke his eardrums. No, say, Hulk, I want to fight. Hulk looked at everyone and shouted a little aggrieved. Then, without caring about other people, he jumped down from the rainbow bridge. Hey, Dr. Banner, can you take care of your stupid kid? Tony looked at the Hulk running wildly below and shouted, very unhappy. However, Hulk's reply made him hate it so much that his back teeth itched. Banner fell asleep. Hee. Damn, this naughty kid. Tony cursed fiercely, and a helpless look suddenly appeared on his face. Banner fell asleep. Qin Luo was not there, and there was probably no one present who could take care of Hulk. This naughty kid. Ancient One can be regarded as one, and Hulk still respects Ancient One very much. It's a pity that looking at the smiling face of Ancient One, he didn't intend to stop it at all. What should we do now, Mr. Stark? Looking at the Hulk who was charging like a bull, Spider-Man looked at Tony with some concern and asked, what else can we do? Screw him. How can we really let Hulk charge alone? Then we can settle the score with Dr. Banner, the parent. All he does is sleep all day. Tony complained, and took off his mask. Then he started the thrusters and flew down. The others followed him. Chapter 54. It's a pity that he didn't know that there are several hell bosses in Asgard now. The souls of those Dark Elves were all thrown into hell under the control of Old Carter. So the soul cards of the Dark Elves did not receive any news. In the spaceship, the Dark Elves saw the appearance of their leader. Suddenly, they all became excited. The speed of the Dark Elf fleet, led by the head ship, soared a lot. At this speed, it only takes 2 or 3 hours to reach Asgard. Chapter 446. The arrival of the army. Tony and Pepper stood in the hall outside. People in the apartment came one after another. Johnny, Old Carter, Little Spider, May Parker. All of them, and they were all energetic, with a bit of sharpness in their eyes. Most of these people have participated in the Battle of Chitauri. Naturally, they are not unfamiliar with large-scale wars. This time, All the members of the apartment can be dispatched. Even Roxanne followed. Now Wushan has mastered some of the power of the devil, and has been blessed by the flame of the Holy Spirit. Although she is not very strong, she is at least not weaker than any of the three captains. Moreover, with the ability of a large-scale attack, her lethality is definitely stronger than that of the captain in close combat. Everyone, get ready. The war is about to begin. This time, Qin Luo, that bastard, will not intervene. We have to rely on ourselves. We must do what we can. Tony looked at the people present and said seriously. However, when he said that Qin Luo would not intervene, his tone was obviously a little excited. Everyone was a little amused when they saw Tony like this, but they didn't say much. Long Kui looked at the starry sky in the distance, and a red light flashed in the depths of her eyes. On the other side, on the square of Asgard, Odin looked at the thousands of Asgardian warriors below, as well as Thor, Loki, and the three warriors of Asgard, Sif, and others. They exuded a powerful aura. That sense of majesty did not make these warriors feel pressured, but rather excited. Each of these people had a strong desire to fight in their eyes. Compared to the people in the hero apartment, these people are real warriors. In contrast, Tony and his friends in the hero apartment are more like a mob. Of course, these are just on the surface. As for the real combat power, everyone just needs to know it. After some mobilization, the momentum of the Asgard warriors soared to a higher level again. At this time, they wished that the Dark Elves would appear immediately. They wanted to have a good fight and defend their homes. Loki and Thor were very relaxed at this time. There was no feeling that the enemy was coming. There was no way, because Qin Luo was still fishing in the back garden of Asgard. With Qin Luo here, it was really hard for them not to relax. But if they knew that Qin Luo would not intervene this time, would they still be as relaxed as they are now? Buzz accompanied by a rapid sound of conch. All the Asgardians were shocked. The enemy is coming. The battle is about to begin. All non-combat members, hide in a safe place. Don't leave. Odin's voice resounded throughout Asgard. He looked at the star field in the distance, where small black dots appeared. It was the army of Dark Elves, the Asgardians who had been hiding in a safe place for a long time. At this time, their faces were flushed with excitement. In their view, the Asgardians were invincible. There was no possibility of failure. The god of cooks and the god of brewing had even begun to discuss the matters of the celebration banquet. Tony and others got the news. There was no rash action. Odin had already greeted them before. At the beginning, they didn't need to play. After all, it was on someone else's territory. Tony and others, facing Odin's request, naturally did not refuse. They just had to wait quietly for Odin's signal now. Malekith stood in front of the window of the spaceship, looking at Asgard not far away. There seemed to be a flash of fire in his eyes. That was the flame of revenge. For Asgard, these Dark Elves really hated it to the bone, especially the leader Malekith. Whenever he thought of the scene when his tribe was expelled from the Nine Realms, the pain of hatred would make him feel that he would rather die than live. Suddenly, the shadow of Odin appeared above Asgard in front of Malekith. The shadow was very huge. It even enveloped the entire Asgard. Looking at Odin's figure, Malekith roared with hatred in his eyes. Odin, Malekith, I didn't expect that your Dark Elves would come back again. This time, Asgard will not leave you a chance to survive. Odin's tone was cold and contained a strong murderous intent. For the Dark Elves, Odin's heart was also full of hatred. After all, in the battle at the beginning, Odin's father was ambushed by Malekith's father. As a result, he was seriously injured and died soon after returning to Asgard. If it weren't for the unstable foundation of the new king Odin's succession, and Asgard's vitality was seriously damaged by the expedition against the Dark Elves, it is impossible to seal and expel them, and they will be exterminated directly. This time, Odin has the same plan as the Dark Elves. There is no plan to let them go, and they must be killed, to eliminate future troubles. Odin, you are old. It's ridiculous that you have become so old in just a few thousand years. Malekith looked at Odin's shadow. At this time, he could feel the other party's old age and twilight through a breath, and a mocking smile suddenly appeared on his face. There was even more joy in his heart. In the whole Asgard, he was most afraid of this God King. Now that the God King is old, Who in Asgard can compete with him? Even if my body is old, I can still destroy you." After saying this, Odin's shadow raised the eternal spear in his hand. The golden light shone. An extremely huge beam of light flew directly towards the dark elf fleet. It contained a full-strength attack of the Father God. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55. Search and solve the Dark Elves from two directions. Fortunately, the captain and his men have a daredevil to help. Otherwise, it would not be so easy to find these Dark Elves with strong stealth abilities. Fuck. These guys are really troublesome. They are natural assassins. Hawkeye narrowly avoided the attack of the Dark Elves under the reminder of Daredevil, and couldn't help cursing. "Stop complaining and come to help." Seeing that 7 or 8 more Dark Elves were pulled out, Natasha retorted to Hawkeye, followed by her sister yelling and holding a dagger, and rushed towards the Dark Elves. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. However, at this moment, a sound of breaking through the air sounded. Hawkeye and others were so scared that they rolled over and dodged. As a result, they saw that red arrows pierced the heads of the Dark Elves directly. "Hawkeye, is that you?" Natasha on the side was shocked when she saw these arrows, and shouted to Hawkeye, who also dodged not far away, "It's not me, but the person who came here has such powerful archery skills. Could he be the god of arrows from Asgard?" Hawkeye's eyes widened, and he shook his head decisively and shouted, "Experts see the doorway, while laymen see the excitement." For Hawkeye, who makes a living with bows and arrows, he knows how terrifying the person who just shot the arrows is. It's not an exaggeration. From the archery aspect alone, he first felt a sense of frustration. The archery skills of the person who came here must be higher than his. As for how much higher, it is unknown. "Are you okay?" At this time, a cold voice sounded. Several people stood up one after another, and as a result, they saw Long Ku in a red dress. "Who are you?" "Ms. Long Ku, Mr. Qin Luo's sister?" Natasha asked in disbelief. If this outfit was not too familiar, she really didn't dare to recognize Long Ku in a red dress. Long Ku, holding the Qian Kun bow, nodded slightly at Natasha. Then the figure flashed, turned into a red light, and disappeared on the spot. Sure enough, people who are related to Mr. Qin Luo all possess incredible power. Hawkeye looked at the place where Long Ku had disappeared. His eyes looked extremely complicated. Chapter 445. The storm is coming in the blink of an eye. 2 days have passed since the Dark Elves' sneak attack. The Dark Elves' sneak attack caused more than 100 casualties in Asgard. However, most of the dead were unarmed civilians. There were not many casualties of real warriors. In the hero apartment, except for a few people who were slightly injured, the others were basically fine. In this incident, Long Ku was definitely the one. She was so crazy that she killed as many as 200 Dark Elves alone. Many people got to know this gentle girl again, when she appeared in front of everyone with a bloody breath and wearing a red wide-sleeved fairy skirt. Little Spider and the others were almost scared to death. How could they not expect that Long Ku would be such a killer? Especially when Long Ku changed back to blue clothes and looked gentle. It made several people feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. It is undoubtedly terrifying to face someone who is so unaffected by killing. In addition, everyone has lived very comfortably for 2 days. However, the people of Asgard are not so relaxed. Many people know that these Dark Elves are just a vanguard. The next highlight is still to come. So Asgard, which was originally full of leisure and ease, has become solemn and murderous. Inside and outside, there is a feeling of impending storm. Qin Luo, what are you going to do this time? You won't let us watch the show again. Tony, lying on the beach chair, looked at Qin Luo, who was fishing not far away, and asked, "Watch the show?" Qin Luo was stunned for a moment when he heard the words, and then he understood what it Tony meant. So he smiled and waved his hand and said, "Don't worry, I am the one who is watching the show this time. The Dark Elf army has arrived, and you are the main force." "Then it's agreed that you can't suddenly jump out?" Tony's eyes lit up when he heard Qin Luo say this, and he quickly spoke. "TSK, you thought it was a good thing. fishing and eating some delicious food. Isn't it nice? If possible, I don't want to fight to the death. Don't worry, I will definitely not compete with you. Be virtuous. Facing Qin Luo's disdainful words, Tony didn't take it to heart at all. He is really excited now, you know. After going through all kinds of things, his research on battlesuits has never stopped. Whether it is the nano battlesuit or the constantly improved metal battlesuit on Pepper, many inspirations come from some situations that occurred during or after the battle. And because of Qin Luo, he hasn't fought seriously for a long time. The time with the Dark Elves, he just warmed up, then he was killed by Long Kui, who came. Sometimes when he looks at his battlesuits now, he feels like putting them back in the safe. It's really uncomfortable to have him or not. Damn, there are still no shrimps. Qin Luo picked up the fishing rod and shook his head helplessly at the black and unrecognizable fish on it. According to Thor, there is a lobster-like creature in the water, which tastes very delicious. As a result, after a long time, not to mention shrimp, not even a shrimp pair was seen. After putting the bait helplessly and throwing the fishing rod back into the lake, Qin Luo said, "Notify everyone and get ready quickly. Your fighting time is coming soon. Be careful. I don't want to eat your feast so early." Okay. Tony heard the words, stood up with shining eyes, put on the armor directly, and immediately let Jarvis connect everyone through the network established here. Due to the geographical location, Jarvis and Red Queen can only create a local area network, but even so, it is enough. Everyone who got the news began to prepare, and Asgard once again rang the familiar conch horn. This time, are you really not going to take action? Guyi suddenly appeared behind Qin Luo and asked calmly, "I really don't plan to take action. I'll leave the Dark Elf warrior to Johnny and his father. Please help take care of him. Don't let anyone die. I don't want the people in the apartment to die in such a trivial battle," Qin Luo said without turning his head. "You are getting lazier and lazier," Guyi muttered dissatisfiedly, and then disappeared from the spot. "Damn it, you are still useless. I'm desperate. I'll drain your lake." On the Dark Elf's spaceship, Malekith looked at the elder beside him with a look of surprise on his face. He asked in a rather gloomy tone, "Great Elder, those people still haven't sent any news back? Not even the soul has sent any news back?" "Report to the leader. Not a single soul has returned. There is no news," the Great Elder said tentatively and asked, "Did that old guy Odin take action?" "He sealed the souls of those warriors, most likely." "Damn Asgardians. Go full speed ahead. I will personally avenge those warriors," Malekith said, and directly slapped his stool to pieces, and bursts of black smoke emanated from his body. Those who don't know would think that the patriarch of the Dark Elves is dead. The Dark Elves have a characteristic that after death, their souls will carry part of the information back to the soul cards of the clan. However, none of the soul cards of the 500 Dark Elf warriors who went on this expedition received any news. They all shattered into slag. It is precisely because of this that Malekith is so angry. Chapter 56. That is to kill Qin Luo. Long Kui saw the Dark Elves continue to charge. The killing intent in her eyes became stronger, then the aura around her began to change. The blue wide-sleeved fairy skirt turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye. There was also a jasper longbow in her hand. Watching the red long sunflower appear on the stage, Qin Luo's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. The temperament change was too thorough. Compared with the blue long sunflower, the red long sunflower is simply two extremes. If it weren't for watching Long Kui change with his own eyes, Qin Luo, who knew everything, would probably think that these were two people. Although the beautiful faces were the same, if you look closely, you will find that the details of the lines are slightly different. This also led to the blue long sunflower being as gentle as water, while the red long sunflower was a kind of heroic spirit that was not inferior to men. Guyi, who was watching the battle, was also full of surprise on his face at this time. With her eyes, she didn't even see that Long Kui actually had two souls. And it seems that these two souls are split, which is basically the same as the situation of the green big guy in the apartment. But normally, Long Kui's soul power was enough to make Guyi feel powerful, but now he found that it was only half of her power. In an instant, Guyi had a new understanding of Long Kui's soul power. At the same time, he had to admit that he had underestimated her before. In terms of soul power alone, I'm afraid that even gods may not be Long Ku's opponents. After Red Long Ku finished switching, without any delay, he placed his fingers on the bowstring. In an instant, a red arrow flew out. It directly pierced a series of dark elves. Those dark elves were no different from paper in front of Long Ku's arrows. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sound of breaking through the air continued to ring. Red Long Ku moved very quickly, and the arrows flew out as if they were free. It took less than 10 seconds. Only one dark elf captain was left on the scene, watching his people fall one by one. The dark elf captain was so angry at this time, but facing the absolute gap in strength, no matter how much he hated it in his heart, there was no way. Red Long Ku slowly raised the longbow and aimed at the dark elf captain. As the green fingers loosened the bowstring, in an instant, countless arrows flew out. All hit the chest of the dark elf captain accurately. True middle. 10,000 arrows pierced the heart. Under countless arrows, the captain turned directly into blood mist, deader than dead. Chapter 444 Qin Luo. New skills. Brother, long time no see. Putting away the longbow, Red Long Ku turned around, looked at Qin Luo gently, and slowly said, Long Ku, your form is really surprising. Qin Luo looked up and down with a smile on his face. I don't know if it's an illusion. Red Long Ku seems to be a little more plump than Blue Long Ku, but he stayed on her jade longbow for a little longer. Qin Luo could feel the power of this bow, and it seemed to contain some kind of pressure. According to the TV series, Long Ku's longbow is called the Jade Waist Bow. However, there is another saying that this longbow is called the Qin Luo. The bow body is made of dragon horns, which is extremely tough and absolutely a divine weapon. Now it seems that the latter statement is more accurate, that inexplicable pressure should be the dragon's power. Long Ku smiled shyly, and then his eyes became cold again. After glancing at the noisy escort behind him, he said in a cold voice, Brother, there are still enemies raging. Can I suppress them? Long Ku, you can act as you like. If you want to go, go. There is no need to ask for my opinion. You are a free person. Qin Luo nodded to Long Ku seriously and said. Hearing this, Long Ku's face clearly showed a hint of joy. His eyes were so soft that they seemed to melt. Thank you, brother. After that, Long Ku flashed directly and turned into a red light and rushed towards the place where the dark elves were raging. Master Guyi, stop making trouble. I need to be quiet now. I haven't fully comprehended the new power yet. Help me protect the law. After watching Long Ku leave, Qin Luo shouted at the spark portal in the air with a helpless tone. After that, regardless of whether Guyi agreed or not, Qin Luo closed his eyes and immersed himself in the breath of the thunder god in his body. Because his previous accumulation of wave power was very rich, in addition to the blessing of various items containing thunder and lightning power such as the Thunder Spirit Pearl. So after the advancement, it was a leap forward, except for the second awakening of the Thunder God's arrival, which has not been fully comprehended. The other two skills of the Emperor of Heaven have been mastered by Qin Luo. Now he is digesting these two skills. Heavenly Thunder Middle. Wave Sword, shoot light attribute wave beads to the target in front and entangle the target. The possessed wave beads will explode after causing continuous damage to the target for a period of time. If there are more than 2 possessed wave beads at the same time within a certain distance, electric current will be generated between the beads and connected to each other, and additional damage will be caused to the target when connected. If there are more than 2 possessed wave beads at the same time, you can choose to activate the skill again. The more wave beads there are, the higher the damage. Thundercloud Middle. Demon Pestle, create a thundercloud that can generate lightning in front. The thundercloud launches lightning in the shape of a Vajra to attack the target every once in a while. When the duration of the thundercloud ends or the skill is activated again, the thundercloud pours out all the remaining Vajra to attack the target and then summons a large Vajra to attack the target. It is extremely powerful. These two skills are very powerful for the Emperor of Heaven, especially the skill of the Thunder Wave Sword. It is simply a magical skill when attacking in groups. The more the number, the stronger the power of the explosion. It is no exaggeration to say that when the number of enemies reaches a certain level, the power of the explosion can even kill the gods directly. Even Qin Luo has thought of a combo. When the time comes, directly summon those unforgivable souls in hell. Come tens of thousands, then launch the Thunder Wave Sword. Wow, that scene is very exciting to think about. As Qin Luo was silent on the skill again, the whole valley became calm again. If it weren't for the corpses on the ground, proving the commotion just now, it would have seemed as if nothing had happened. With the counterattack of the Asgardian warriors, and the help of the hero apartment and others, the remaining 300 Dark Elves were almost wiped out at a speed visible to the naked eye. Soon there were less than 100 people left, and they were still being wiped out quickly. Now Tony, Spider-Man, May Parker and others were gathered together, and the Captain and the other three, as well as the Hulk, Yelena and others were gathered together. Chapter 57. The taste can't be said to be the best in the world, but it's almost the same. This combination method was taught to Guyi by Qin Luo. After tasting the taste, Guyi basically gave up the habit of drinking tea. Guyi took a sip of wine from time to time, and then picked up a peanut and put it in his mouth and chewed it carefully. Tasting the mellow aroma of the wine and the strong aroma of the peanuts, that taste made Guyi feel the feeling of being alive for a rare time. Looking at the Dark Elves who appeared not far away and were full of ferocious murderous intent, Guyi didn't take them seriously at all. He still tasted the wine and peanuts. It was as if those Dark Elves were air. In contrast, the Dark Elves felt the pressure in their hearts doubled when they saw Guyi not far away, especially the captain of the Dark Elves. He is not a fool, nor a blind man, although he can't see the real power of Guyi with his strength. But the extremely ethereal and unreal feeling on the other party told him that the person in front of him is definitely not simple. The strength is probably not what they imagined. Damn it, Asgard is indeed prepared. But where did they find such a strong man? The Dark Elf captain cursed, staring at Guyi, thinking of a solution. Captain, let's fight. Don't be afraid of death. A Dark Elf captain looked at the captain with a determined look in his eyes, perhaps because of being too nervous. The spear in his hand was deformed by him. Damn it, no matter what, there is nothing to think about at this time. Let's rush over together, even if we can't get the holy objects back. Don't let these Asgardians feel good. People, kill. The Dark Elf captain roared and raised his spear. The rest of the Dark Elf elites heard the words and their fighting spirits surged. Kill. With roars, the Dark Elves raised their spears and charged Guyi. The speed of these Dark Elves was not satisfactory. It took less than 100 meters and they arrived in the blink of an eye. Guyi shook his head helplessly when he saw this. She really didn't want to do it now, but they came to kill her. She couldn't move. Master Guyi pointed the chopsticks in his hand at the void. Suddenly, hundreds of spark portals appeared in front of the Dark Elves. Almost in the blink of an eye, hundreds of Dark Elves disappeared here. Instead, they appeared in the newly built 17th layer of hell. The rest of the Dark Elves were terrified, but now they had no way out. They could only charge more frantically. Faced with such a scene, Guyi couldn't help but frown. There are really people who are not afraid of death. Chapter 443, Diverting the Trouble to the East. Red-clothed Long Kui facing those crazy Dark Elves. Guyi was about to kill them, but he stopped just halfway up. Suddenly Guyi thought of Qin Luo. At this time, the thunder and lightning on Qin Luo's side had gradually subsided. Although there were some thunder and lightning from time to time, it was still in a calm state most of the time. With her perception, it was not difficult to sense that Qin Luo's side was over. In this case, why not divert the trouble to the east? They were busy here, and the leader was watching the show on the side. The more Guyi thought about it, the more she felt that she should find something for Qin Luo to do. Otherwise, that guy was almost lazy. She had spatial power, but she had to open the door every time. She was almost a doorman. Guyi became more and more angry, so the hand gestures in the air changed. The next moment, a huge spark portal fell from the sky. There was no chance for the Dark Elves to react. They were directly sent to the valley where Qin Luo broke through by the spark portal. The spark portal did not disappear directly, it just shrank a few points, which was about the size of a person. And Master Guyi was observing the situation here through the spark portal. If there was anything wrong, she could also solve the problem in time. Qin Luo, who was surrounded by lightning and breathing slowly, opened his eyes. After glancing at the Dark Elves who were still in a daze around him, Qin Luo opened his eyes and raised his eyebrows helplessly. Then he raised his head and looked at the spark portal, and said helplessly, "Master Ancient One, you have learned bad things." Hearing this, the corners of Ancient One's mouth rose slightly, but he did not pay attention to Qin Luo, but just watched quietly how Qin Luo planned to deal with these dark elves. At this time, the dark elves also came back to their senses. Looking at Qin Luo, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, his whole body was full of strong thunder and lightning. One by one, their eyes became bright, and there was a ferocious red light flashing in their eyes. The power of thunder and lightning. That's right, this person should be the son of the old man Odin, Thor. I didn't expect to encounter a big fish. If you can kill his son, the old guy will cry. Kill him, for the dark elves must kill him. I really hope to see Odin see his son die. The dark elves were so excited that they were almost dying. The breath of the whole body became extremely unstable. Looking at Qin Luo's eyes was like a hungry wolf seeing meat bones. I say, does possessing the power of thunder and lightning mean that it must be Thor? How did you dark elves get so mad? Saying I am Thor is a bit too insulting. Am I that unbearable? Qin Luo glanced at the dark elves with a rather unpleasant look on his face, and spoke unhappily. Not far away, Thor, who was about to leave after hearing the alarm, suddenly stopped. Turning back, looking at Qin Luo's handsome face, it seemed as if 10,000 grass mud horses were flying through his heart. However, after carefully considering the difference in strength between the two and the possibility of being beaten if he jumped out, Thor decisively turned his head back and strode away from this sad place. Kill him. Kill the god of thunder. The captain of the Dark Elves ignored Qin Luo's complaints at all. He raised his spear high and roared. The rest of the Dark Elves raised their spears and charged towards Qin Luo. Just when Qin Luo was about to take action, whoosh, suddenly, he felt a familiar breath, and then a sound of breaking through the air sounded. The next moment, a gorgeous longsword appeared directly in front of Qin Luo. Buzz! The sound of the sword vibrated and formed a ripple-like sound wave. Those dark elves who were close to it were directly shattered by the sound of the sword. Although the remaining dark elves did not die, they were basically injured, and several of them had their internal organs shattered. Basically, these dark elves lost nearly half of their combat power before they could get close to Qin Luo. As a faint blue light flashed, Long Kui's figure appeared on the Sword of Gods and Demons. "You want to hurt my brother?" Long Kui stared at the dark elves coldly, with a strong murderous intent in her eyes. However, the dark elves did not care about Long Kui's question at all. They only had one thought in their minds now. Chapter 58. Looking back, I saw the earth goddess Sif and two Asgardian warriors running over in a hurry. The sound of breaking through the air was the long sword thrown by Sif. Perhaps it was because she was too anxious, or because Sif's aim was not good. The long sword that was originally intended to chop the spear actually deviated slightly and chopped towards Maypark's shoulder. When Sif saw this scene, she was numb. She knew the relationship between Maypark and Qin Luo very well. If Maypark was injured or even died because of her, let alone her, I'm afraid that the whole Asgard would be buried with Maypark. However, the next scene was beyond her cognition. It seemed that Maypark had eyes on his back, and he accurately grabbed the spear, and then threw it violently. The spear was like an arrow from a string, directly piercing the chest of a dark elf captain, and nailed it directly to the wall. After the long sword she threw landed on Maypark's shoulder, it actually deviated to one side strangely. Not only did he not hurt Maypark, but he also cut the arm of another dark elf. Before Sif and the others could finish being surprised, Maypark had already dealt with the remaining dark elves. "Miss Maypark, your strength is really beyond my imagination." Heimdall covered his wound and said with admiration on his face. Sif and the two Asgardian warriors looked at Maypark with awe in their eyes. Asgard has always respected the strong, and the strength shown by Maypark is completely worthy of their respect. If it's useless, don't say it. What's going on? Why did someone suddenly attack? Maypark said with a bad face. He was attacked just after arriving here. Even Maypark, who has always been good-tempered, couldn't help but feel a little angry at this time. "Sorry, Miss Maypark, these should be scouts of the Dark Elves. I guess you already know about the Dark Elves." "It was my mistake. I didn't find the traces of the Dark Elves in time. I promise that this will not happen again," Heimdall said apologetically. "Forget it. Go and heal your wounds first. I'll go see the others. It's best to solve this matter quickly." Maypark glanced at Heimdall's wound that was constantly bleeding, shook his head helplessly, and moved his feet, as if skating, and quickly slid towards the direction of Spider-Man and others. "Heimdall, how are you?" Seeing Maypark gone, Sif and others hurried forward, helped Heimdall up and asked, "No problem, just weakened by the curse of the Dark Elves. Just go to the Holy Lake to clean the wound. Don't worry about me. Go and stop this invasion quickly. Fortunately, the guests are fine now. If something happens, my son will be great." Heimdall couldn't help but smile bitterly. Seeing Heimdall's appearance, several people nodded, and without much nonsense, ran towards the apartment where others lived. And Heimdall bit his teeth and walked quickly towards the Holy Lake. Now he must wash the curse on his body as soon as possible to restore his fighting power. There are more than 300 Dark Elves wreaking havoc in Asgard. Although a lot of losses have been made in a short period of time, but there are still more than 200 people killing and causing chaos everywhere. Speaking of which, the Asgardians have been at ease for a long time. In addition to those warriors who often fight, the remaining Asgardians have no ability to resist the sudden attack of the Dark Elves. And the real elite among these Dark Elves did not kill everywhere. They were divided into a team of 20 people, led by 9 captains and 1 captain, and killed in the direction of Jane Forts. Their purpose is very clear: to snatch the ether particles. Chapter 442. There are really elite Dark Elves who are not afraid of death. The ability to hide in the dark is obviously a level higher than those ordinary Dark Elves. They are like fish in water in Asgard. Even when they encountered 2 waves of patrols, they failed to expose them. Soon these Dark Elves felt the breath of ether particles, reality gems. In an instant, their faces showed excitement. The Dark Elves raid on Asgard this time. In addition to causing chaos, a more important task is to snatch the ether particles. In fact, it is not important whether this task can be completed. Malekith also wants to take a gamble and see if it works. If it works, it's the best. If not, the result will be the same if the army kills. The breath of the ether particles makes the blood of these Dark Elves seem to boil. One by one, the pace quickened. It didn't take long before they came to a special bedroom. This can be regarded as the residence of the god of medicine, but it was temporarily requisitioned by the queen. Now Jane Fortes is lying on a special bed. There are various magic circles carved beside the bed. The queen's face is full of solemnity, and the magic energy in her hand keeps flashing. Mysterious runes and light flash from time to time on the magic circle. And at the center of Jane Fortes's eyebrows, a ray of red light is slowly floating out. It converges towards the vessel not far away. Now there is a red crystal the size of a grain of rice in the vessel visible to the naked eye. Every time after absorbing a ray of red breath, the crystal will grow a little bit. These are the energy of the reality gem. The queen is using the power of magic to gradually peel off the reality gem in Jane Ford's body. Although the process is cumbersome and extremely slow, but compared with the original plot, this peeling method almost minimizes the damage. Jane Fords is lying on the bed at this moment, as if she is asleep. There is no pain on her face. The process of separating the reality gem is not so smooth. After all, the reality gem is not given for free. Every time it is peeled to a certain extent, the reality gem will attack the queen and Jane Fords. However, every time the surging energy will be suppressed by the Taikai diagram that suddenly appears. It really makes the queen feel a lot more relaxed. The most dangerous and difficult situations were all resolved cleanly under the magical Taikai diagram. That is to say, helping Jane Fords to separate the reality gem now makes the queen unable to be distracted. Otherwise, the queen must study the magical pattern carefully. The queen wiped the sweat from her forehead slightly, mobilized the magic energy in her body, and helped Jane Fortes to start the separation again. Then at this time, the elite of the Dark Elves began to approach quickly. As they got closer and closer to the reality gem, the murderous intent in the eyes of the Dark Elves became more and more intense. At the same time, the aura on their bodies was rising. However, When they were less than 100 meters away from Jane Fortes and the others, a bald man blocked their way. Now in the whole Asgard, who else can be like such a white bald head? In addition to Master Gu Yi, who else can there be? At this time, Master Gu Yi's state can be said to be quite chic. She sat cross-legged on the ground. There was a small table in front of her. On it were a pot of wine and a plate of spiced peanuts. Don't look at this simple wine and peanuts. They are all from Qin Luo's hands. The wine that leads to the gods and the peanuts made by Zhaldagia. Chapter 59. Luo Shan couldn't help but ask worriedly after hearing this. Don't worry. The people in the apartment are all good. They are all strong. It is definitely not a problem to face these attackers. But I am a little curious, who would be unlucky enough to attack Qin Luo and Ancient One? Johnny said, with a strange smile on his face. He couldn't help but feel pity for the dark elves who attacked. If someone really attacked the two big guys, I'm afraid they would die without knowing how they died. Old Carter had the same idea as Johnny. He was also the one who was attacked, and the fate of those dark elves was the same as Johnny's. The dark flame turned into ashes directly, and even their souls were secretly eaten by Carlo. In the Hulk's room, the Hulk was chatting with Natasha's sister Yelena. After several contacts, the two had a good relationship. Banner gave up his body and was sleeping in his soul. When the two were chatting happily, suddenly, Hulk punched Yelena. Facing Hulk's sudden attack, Yelena was shocked. She didn't understand why Hulk suddenly attacked her. Just when she wanted to fight back, there was a sound of broken bones. Yelena was shocked, and then she reacted, and did a backflip, landing next to Hulk. A dagger appeared in her hand at some point, and her eyes were like sharp knives, staring at the dark elves that slowly appeared not far away. The result is imaginable. These dark elves are not enough for Hulk to beat alone. In just less than a few minutes, all these dark elves were smashed into mud. They fell to the ground, almost breathing out more than breathing in. Hulk, come with me to see my sister. I guess they have also been attacked. Yelena looked at the dark elves who fell to the ground, and a trace of solemnity flashed in her eyes. Don't think that she and Hulk dealt with these dark elves easily, but she knew very well that if Hulk was not there, with her strength, she would suffer some damage if she wanted to deal with these dark elves. The fearless and fearless state of the dark elves just now shocked her. Hulk nodded obediently without refusing, followed Yelena and ran towards Natasha's location. Facts have proved that Yelena's thoughts are not wrong at all. Natasha and the others were also attacked by the dark elves, and the number is quite large. There are as many as 17 or 18 dark elves attacking them. Among them, there are two captains. Natasha, the captain, and Hawkeye are facing the attack of these dark elves. It is still quite difficult to resist. Although the three killed several dark elves, Natasha and Hawkeye were slightly injured, especially Hawkeye. There is a significant blood hole in his lower abdomen. This is the result of his timely avoidance. Otherwise, he would have been pierced by the dark elf spear. There is no way. Who made him a long-range attacker? And he didn't bring a bow and arrow when he went out for a stroll. Almost all of his skills are on bows and arrows, and the remaining weapons are fighting. It is naturally quite difficult to face the fierce and unusual dark elves. However, at this moment, Yelena rushed over with the Hulk. The Hulk did not say a word and directly smashed the dark elf in front of Natasha. Seeing Hulk and Yelena appear together, Natasha's expression was indescribably weird. There was even a bit of pain in her eyes, as if she remembered some painful past. Finally, she shook her head helplessly and attacked the other dark elves. Now is not the time to think about it. At the Rainbow Bridge, Heimdall was still fighting with the dark elves. Facing the attacks of these dark managers, Heimdall inevitably had a few more blood holes on his body. The invasion of the dark power made him feel extremely painful, but he still bit and fought. Lan Zhao. Suddenly a wind blade attacked him and directly cut the two dark elves behind him into two sections. Chapter 441. Maypark shows off his power. Heimdall felt the sharpness on his cheeks. He couldn't help but feel a little frightened. He turned around and saw Maypark, with a cold face, retracting his slender legs. His arms were gradually covered by a layer of black substance. The moment he saw Maypark, Heimdall felt relieved. He staggered back a few steps and sat on the ground. Heimdall knew Maypark's strength very well. His strength would never be inferior to that of his own prince. It would be easy for him to deal with these dark elves. Facts proved that Maypark did not disappoint Heimdall. After shaving his hands, Maypark appeared among the dark elves in a flash. The fingers under the armed color shone with a metallic luster. A few black after images flashed by, and a finger-sized blood hole appeared on the heads of 3 or 4 dark elves. The surrounding dark elves were shocked, especially the 2 elf captains. They were a little knowledgeable. Judging from the breath, the person in front of them was not from Asgard, but a human on Earth, and a human female. But they couldn't figure out why such a strong person would appear on Earth, which was known for its weakness. The dark elf captains looked at each other, and then disappeared into the darkness. Seeing this, the remaining 7 or 8 dark elves also hid in the darkness. However, 2 of them were a little slow and had their heads twisted off by Maypark. "Miss Maypark, please be careful. These guys have strong stealth abilities." "I'll help." Heimdall endured the severe pain and stood up, but he was dumbfounded when he was halfway through his words. In Maypark's eyes, those dark elves seemed to be unable to hide at all. Maypark threw out a few precise finger guns, all of which accurately hit those hidden dark elves. Plop, plop, plop. It didn't take a few seconds for 3 dark elves to fall to the ground and reappear. Maypark was able to see these dark elves. Naturally, it was the credit of his observation haki. Now Maypark has cultivated his observation haki to a certain level, breaking through the elite level and reaching the master level. Moreover, her awakened observation haki ability is similar to Katakuri's, and can have the effect of predicting the future in a short period of time. However, compared to Katakuri, Maypark's observation haki is just getting started. The ability to predict the future is very limited. But even so, it is enough to deal with these dark elves. "Damn human woman, how could it be? How could it be like this?" Feeling Maypark's gaze, the dark elf captain was completely shocked, but more of it was a kind of fear. Gritting his teeth, the dark elf captain simply rushed out of the darkness. The spear was thrown out fiercely, and after flashing several times, it disappeared in front of Maypark. Maypark was not panicked at all, and just wanted to dodge sideways. A loud shout came from behind. "Be careful!" Whoosh! As the voice fell, another burst of air-breaking sound rang out. Chapter 60. To be honest, the Green Goblin's strength has reached the level of the captain, and he is even stronger than his father Norman Osborn. Ding! The sound of metal clashing rang out, and the Green Goblin's long sword collided fiercely with the spear in the hand of the Dark Elf. Sparks flew in an instant. The Dark Manager and the Green Goblin took a half step back at the same time. The Green Goblin saw that the opponent's black spear had no gaps or even scratches, and he couldn't help but secretly smack his lips. His knife was made by Tony and Norman Osborn together, and it is no exaggeration to say that it can cut iron like mud. For this reason, he often boasted in front of Spider-Man, but who would have thought that he would meet an opponent so soon? Compared with the Green Goblin's surprise, the Dark Elf didn't care about those messes. He waved his spear and stabbed it directly at the Green Goblin's throat. Feeling the danger coming, the Green Goblin didn't dare to be careless and dodged quickly. But at this moment, the other 2 Dark Elves came from both sides. The spear in his hand pointed directly at the vital point of the little green demon. Seeing his friend in danger, the little spider, who was still hesitating whether to kill, could no longer sit still. He rushed forward and kicked the 2 Dark Elves away with a double kick. Compared with the little green demon and the little spider, more Dark Elves rushed towards Tony. Although they were crazy, they were not fools. They naturally knew the principle of catching the thief first. From the order Tony gave just now, he was destined to be the main target of this small group of Dark Elves. If it were in the original plot, Tony at this time might have a hard time facing these Dark Elves, but now Tony is no longer the same as before. The arc pulse cannons in his hands kept bombarding the Dark Elves. Before the Dark Elves approached, more than half of them were killed or injured. Seeing this, the captain of the Dark Elves, without saying a word, threw the spear towards Tony. At the same time, a wisp of black breath was attached. Under the blessing of this black breath, the spear disappeared in front of Tony. However, the sense of danger did not disappear. Tony sneered disdainfully at this, and with a command, Jarvis directly opened the protective shield. Ding! At the moment when the protective shield was opened, The black spear landed on the protective shield, only splashing a few sparks. The dark elf captain's face changed drastically. He did not expect that the assassination trick he was proud of would be blocked by Tony so easily. But now he had no time to think, and saw an equally dark figure flying forward. The huge fist hit his face as if it was free. It was Venom Pepper. Pepper had not been possessed by Venom before, so Venom had a great influence on her, especially when she saw Tony was almost attacked. The negative emotions soared directly. Pepper attacked the elf captain frantically, and even under the instigation of Venom, she opened her fangs and bit the dark elf captain's head. Bang! However, Venom's head hit an invisible barrier and he didn't really bite it. Venom looked up and saw Tony looking at him with a bad face. "Venom, you guy, put away your little thoughts. Eat if you want. I don't bother to care about you when Qin Luo is not here. But don't use Pot's body to do this kind of thing." Venom heard this and grinned awkwardly. Misunderstanding, I will leave Miss Pot's body now." After that, Venom directly left Pepper's body, condensed into shape, and then grabbed the dark elf who had just survived the disaster, opened his mouth, and bit it. Snap! Chicken flavor. Crunchy. Several people looked at Venom with some disgust, and then there was no more. After several battles, the attacking Dark Elves had been cleared. Those that Spider-Man couldn't kill were all chopped off by the Green Goblin. Soon Venom swallowed the Dark Elf captain cleanly. With a change in his figure, Venom disappeared into the darkness. Obviously, after devouring the Dark Elves, Venom also mastered some of their abilities. Hee, what a great ability. It will be more convenient to steal food in the future. Hiding in the darkness, Venom laughed strangely, his face full of excitement. However, at this moment, a hand stretched out and grabbed Venom directly from the darkness. The owner of this hand was none other than Spider-Man. Spider-Man looked at Venom with some dissatisfaction, and was very dissatisfied with the other party's behavior of eating directly. However, he also knew that Venom was like this, and he was not really angry with Venom, but more helpless. "Okay, you go to other places first. There are probably many such enemies. Others may have been attacked. You all be careful. I will accompany Potts to get the armor. We will gather at the Rainbow Bridge later. If the situation is not right, go to Johnny or Master Ancient One." "Got it?" Tony looked at Spider-Man and the other two seriously, and said in a serious tone. The three nodded repeatedly, and then under Spider-Man's sensing ability, they ran quickly towards the place where the others were, just as Tony expected. The rest of the people have been attacked, and the battle is quite fierce. Chapter 440. Everyone is attacked. Johnny and Roxanne are also in Asgard talking about love. It's just that the place where they are is far away from Tony and his friends. They sat on a piece of grass, looking at the forest not far away. Both of them have memories in their eyes, thinking back to the time they carved words on a tree that was not very thick and promised to be together. In a blink of an eye, decades have passed, and the boy and girl have experienced all kinds of things. In the end, they are still together. Speaking of it, it was really miserable to be tricked by Mephisto. As a result, several spears suddenly came flying at a fast and urgent speed. It is obvious that they are here to take your life. Looking for death, Johnny's eyes flashed with fire, and a blue flame barrier rose around him instantly. Countless spears were burned into molten iron by the surging Holy Spirit flame before they could get close. The Dark Elves hiding in the dark felt the powerful breath of the Holy Spirit fire, and their eyes almost popped out. They never thought that they would provoke such a powerful existence. This person's power is probably stronger than their leader. Several people immediately thought of retreating. They were not afraid of death, but they were unwilling to die before completing the mission. Unfortunately, their death was doomed at the moment of action. "Humphrey, you still want to run after the action? Do you really think I'm made of mud?" Johnny snorted coldly. With a sudden wave of his hand, the Holy Spirit fire suddenly swept towards the fleeing dark spirits like a wave. When the light of the flame flashed, on the green lawn, there were only 6 or 7 charred human-shaped ashes, and there was nothing else. How could it be Johnny? Why would someone attack us? Is Asgard going to attack us? But it shouldn't be. There is no reason. Luo Shan frowned and looked at Johnny beside her and asked. After experiencing so many things, Luo Shan is no longer a Wuxiaomon. She is now able to face these dangers calmly, and with the help of Johnny and Old Carter, Luo Shan also gained a certain amount of demonic power. It can be considered as having the ability to protect himself. Something is wrong. The power of these people does not belong to Asgard. They all have some kind of dark power. If nothing unexpected happens, these people are the Dark Elves who are about to attack. Johnny thought for a while and spoke decisively. Will the others be in danger? Chapter 61. But this tree seems to be a little strange today. And there is an inexplicable ominous breath in his heart. Just when the captain wanted his men to be alert, suddenly, he felt a chill in his chest. And then a severe pain came from his chest. He looked down and saw that a pitch-black spear had pierced his body. The captain looked at the sharp spear on his chest in disbelief. He never thought that he would die here, on his own territory, just when he wanted to use up his last strength and fight with the other party. Suddenly, his whole body was shocked, and his strength seemed to pass away like water. His last picture seemed to see his combat boots. After all the patrol soldiers were solved, more than a dozen black-robed people with bloodshot eyes walked out of the darkness. They held the same black spear in their hands, and their eyes were full of joy and madness. These people are the Dark Elves who invaded Asgard. At this time, they have hidden in the darkness and started a feast of killing. The scene just now has begun to happen all over Asgard. Damn Dark Elves! Heimdall suddenly opened his eyes, and a fierce killing intent flashed in his pale yellow pupils. He suddenly pulled out the sword that controlled the Rainbow Bridge. He chopped it behind him. Chinese website puff. Blood splattered, and a dark elf holding a spear appeared. His body and the spear had been split into two sections by Heimdall's sword. Get out! I've seen you! Heimdall held the sword in both hands and stared at the shadow in front of him. His words were full of anger. Just now, because he was monitoring the Nine Realms, he never thought that his hometown would be stolen. This matter was completely his dereliction of duty, which led to countless Asgard warriors being attacked. The guilt and anger in Heimdall's heart can be imagined. Woo woo woo! The whole Asgard suddenly rang with a humming sound similar to that of a conch. This sound was extremely penetrating, and almost all Asgardians heard it. The moment they heard the sound of the conch, all the Asgardians who had no fighting power hid. The Asgardian warriors who had fighting power put on their armor, picked up their weapons and rushed out of the house. The patrol team was all nervous. The sound of the conch was the alarm of Asgard. It was controlled by a few Asgardians such as Heimdall. When he found the Dark Elves, Heimdall turned on the alarm without hesitation. He, gatekeeper, it's really troublesome. If we had known, we would have rushed up and killed you. A burst of cold laughter came. Then more than 20 Dark Elves appeared in front of Heimdall. The leader, holding two spears in his hands, looked at Heimdall fiercely, and the crazy aura on his body was revealed. At this time, Heimdall couldn't help but sweat on his forehead. His ability is mainly in his eyes. Speaking of combat effectiveness, I'm afraid it's at the level of the three warriors of Asgard. Maybe it can be stronger, but the degree of strength is very limited. Facing so many Dark Elves at the same time, including a captain-level figure, it was really difficult for him. Kill! With the order of the Dark Elf captain, more than 20 Dark Elves rushed towards Heimdall. They still knew something about Heimdall's ability, so they did not choose the sneak attack and assassination they were good at. Instead, they started a frontal charge. The Holy Lake of Asgard. Spider-Man suddenly rushed to Tony and Pepper, and immediately scared the two of them. I don't understand what Spider-Man is going crazy about. However, at this moment, two sharp spears suddenly appeared in Spider-Man's hands, and the direction of the spear tip was Tony and Pepper. Tony was also a veteran. Seeing such a scene, he immediately realized that the enemy was coming. Fortunately, Tony now has a nano armor, otherwise he would be in trouble. Tony stood in front of Pepper and picked up his vest hanging on the beach chair. After tapping his chest several times, the nano armor began to spread rapidly throughout his body. At the same time, Spider-Man suddenly exerted force on his arms and pulled the two Dark Elves out of the shadows. Who are you and why did you attack us? Spider-Man looked at the Dark Elves warily and asked. However, the two did not give Spider-Man any answer, but turned over and rushed towards Pepper and Tony again. This time, Spider-Man did not use him. Tony raised his hand and fired two arc pulse cannons, blowing the two Dark Elves into slag. Damn it, Miss Potts, be careful, Venom, you go protect Miss Potts. Suddenly, two more spears stabbed out and attacked Pepper Chili again. Spider-Man rushed over with his spider sense, blocking the spears while summoning Venom to cover Pepper Chili's body. Pepper Chili was not unfamiliar with the existence of Venom, and did not resist at all, allowing the venom to spread all over her body. In an instant, Pepper Chili felt that her body was full of strength, and under Venom's beast-like sharpness. She rushed to the corner on one side, swinging her arms like a rubber band, directly took out two dark elves. Little Spider, Little Osborn, pull out all these rats hiding in the dark. I can't consider making the exercises simpler next time, Tony said in a cold tone. He was very angry now. Think about it. It would be strange if anyone didn't get angry when facing such a sudden attack. Little Spider's eyes lit up when he heard it. Not only him, the little green demon's eyes turned green, holding a rather ferocious dagger in his hand, waving it towards the dark place. He didn't have spider sense, so he could only rely on stupid methods to drive out the dark elves. Little Spider was different. His spider sense had reached a very high level now. It didn't take half a minute. He pulled out 7 or 8 dark elves, counting the one that Pepper had just shot out. There were more than 10 dark elves who attacked them. Chapter 439 Fighting. Greedy Venom, who are you? Why are you attacking us? Tony looked at the dozen dark elves coldly, and asked angrily in his tone. The captain of the dark elves, who was in the lead, also stared at Tony and others, but did not answer Tony's question. Instead, he asked in the same way, you are not from Asgard? Who are you? As Asgard's old rival, the Dark Elves are not unfamiliar with the divine power of the Asgardians. They can even be called sensitive. These Dark Elves can feel that although Tony and others are very strong, they do not have the unique divine power of Asgard. Forget it. I am too lazy to ask. Anyway, the one who attacked us is the enemy. Spider-Man, Little Osborn, don't hold back, just kill them. Tony's patience is exhausted at this time. Under the influence of Qin Luo, Tony's style of doing things is more decisive than in the original plot. With Tony's order, Spider-Man was still a little hesitant, but Little Osborn rushed up without saying a word, picked up the ferocious machete and rushed up. The little green goblin is now different from the past. Dr. Banner has completed the transformation of the Green Goblin serum. After using it, not only will it not produce the side effects of the evil personality, but it will also rise to a higher level for self-strengthening. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62. Alas, Odin sighed, and couldn't help but feel a little worried about the future of Asgard. In the end, Odin shook his head and walked towards his bedroom helplessly. He hadn't been quiet just now, and now he wanted to be quiet even more. But before he walked far, Ancient One, Johnny, and Old Carter came towards him. The three of them had a look of surprise on their faces. Obviously, they were all attracted by the surging power of thunder and lightning. Odin, what is this movement? Qin Luo? Ancient One looked at Odin and asked tentatively. Even if there was already a guess in his heart, facing such a surging energy, he was still a little worried if he didn't ask carefully. Yes, he said he had some insights. Odin pointed to the area where thunder and lightning were like rain and said, didn't Brother Qin just grow up? How come? Johnny was so shocked that he trembled a little. Qin Luo's progress speed has completely exceeded his imagination. Generally speaking, for an existence like Qin Luo, it takes more than just resources and insights to go further. Time is also a factor. He just broke through in the morning, and then he did it again in the evening. There is no such pervert as this. Qin Luo seems to have multiple powers in his body. This should be the power that fits the power of nature. It has broken through. This is the power of thunder and lightning. Old Carter squinted his eyes and said with emotion, TSK, the power of thunder and lightning. It seems that your son's reputation will be changed. Guyi suddenly showed a smile on his face. looking at Odin, and said with a little teasing, "She and Odin are old acquaintances. She used to be indifferent and didn't like to joke about such things. Now influenced by Qin Luo, Guyi has also let himself go." Odin couldn't help but smile bitterly when he heard it. He waved his hand and said, "Master Guyi, don't laugh at me. The so-called god of thunder, others don't know, but you don't know it. This is just the tradition of Asgard. Everyone, I won't accompany you today, please." After that, Odin disappeared from the spot with a flash. Only the smiling Ancient One, and the amazed old Carter and Johnny were left. Thor, who had just come out of Jane Ford's room, immediately saw the three warriors of Asgard and the goddess of the earth Sif blocking the door. There was also Loki, who was watching the fun. Soon, Thor was a little at a loss, facing Sif's resentful eyes. He didn't know what to say. "Well, you guys chat first, we have things to do, so we won't bother you." Hogun, one of the three warriors, felt the increasingly solemn atmosphere and said with a dry laugh. However, as soon as he said this, he immediately attracted the attention of Thor and Sif. One was asking for help, and the other was a murderous look. Hogun was so scared that he kept silent and didn't dare to say anything nonsense. Loki was eating melons on the side and was so happy. The people in front of him were not very friendly to him. Now he was happy to see anyone in trouble. "Thor, I think Sif took a deep breath, mustered up the courage and was about to say something, but suddenly the sky and the earth changed color. Boom! The huge sound of thunder made several people feel dizzy. When they came to their senses, they saw that the world in the distance had turned into a world of thunder and lightning. The thunder and lightning that destroyed the world made everyone stunned. "OMG, Thor, in the whole Asgard, besides you, is there anyone else who has such a powerful thunder power?" Hogun came to his senses, exclaimed, and looked at Thor in disbelief and asked, "Yes, Thor, is there something wrong with your hammer?" "No, this is not Thor's power of thunder." The other two warriors also exclaimed in surprise. They were really shocked now. Thor couldn't help twitching at the corners of his mouth when he heard the words of his good friends. After looking at Hogun helplessly, he said, "What do you think I am? One of the 5 great gods of creation? Even if I try my best, I can't activate even one of these terrifying thunder and lightning forces. The person who activated these thunder and lightning is probably Uncle Qin. Among the beings I know, only he can use such terrifying thunder and lightning forces. Even the father of the gods can't do it," Thor said with a look of envy on his face. There was no jealousy and hatred, mainly because the gap between the two was too big. That kind of admiration made Thor unable to feel jealous. "That human? It's really unimaginable that a human can reach such a level. It's really a mortal body compared to gods," Hogun said with emotion on his face. Hearing this, Thor couldn't help but think of a famous saying of Qin Luo. He found that his good friend was also a toad at the bottom of the well. He didn't know how big the sky was. Too lazy to think too much, Thor focused on the thunder and lightning that were striking down. He didn't know why he was paying attention to the thunder and lightning that kept falling, but there was a voice in his heart telling him that he must not miss this thunder and lightning feast, otherwise, he would miss a lot of things. Thinking of Thor, he couldn't control himself. He swung Thor's hammer and rushed towards the place where Qin Luo was in seclusion. "Thor!" After a few seconds, Sif realized it belatedly and shouted angrily, wishing to catch up. But Qin Luo and the others had been honored as guests by Odin. If she disturbed Qin Luo, Sif would definitely be punished. In the end, reason prevailed. He stomped his feet angrily and turned away. In the holy lake of Asgard, Tony and Pepper were talking about sex and love here without shame. An unprecedented sense of relief surged into the hearts of the two. They are now completely empty and don't have to think about the battle suits and Stark Industries at all. If this place wasn't a little strange, I'm afraid that outsiders would suddenly appear. I'm afraid the two would have taken a step further. Mr. Stark, today's exercises have been completed. Please." Spider-Man and Green Goblin ran over, only to see an embarrassing scene. They froze in place. Pepper's face flushed. She pushed Tony to the ground. Then she picked up the juice on the side and drank it to hide her embarrassment. Tony stood up and looked at Spider-Man and Green Goblin with a slightly dark face. His eyes were almost spitting fire. Spider-Man and Green Goblin felt bad, but if they wanted to run at this time, the end was bound to be even more miserable. The two could only wait for the storm to come with sad faces. However, at this moment, Spider-Man's hair stood up. He suddenly flashed and rushed in front of Tony and Pepper. Chapter 438 The Dark Elves attack. The Asgardian warriors are now on daily patrol. Compared with the laziness of the past, they have been patrolling very seriously recently, and it has been several times more frequent. The Asgardians who are a little more informed know that the war is about to begin. At this moment, the soldiers felt as if a storm was about to come. Suddenly, the patrol leader stopped and looked at the big tree not far away with a puzzled look. They had patrolled this road many times. Chapter 63 If this goes on, Qin Luo seriously doubts that one day he will be able to truly have the ability to predict the future. He knew that the Dark Elves were coming. He didn't react too much. Come on. Isn't the purpose of their trip to Asgard this time those Dark Elves? Throwing away the messy thoughts, Qin Luo began to concentrate on eating, drinking and playing with everyone. It must be said that the chef god of Asgard is still very good. Many delicacies are very distinctive. Even Qin Luo, who has inherited the little chef, can't find any big problems, but he still sincerely gave the chef god a few small suggestions. After hearing Qin Luo's suggestions, the chef god was immediately shocked and almost worshipped Qin Luo as his teacher on the spot. His attitude towards Qin Luo was so respectful, and he strongly requested to take Qin Luo to visit his kitchen. In this way, a banquet that was happy for both the host and the guests ended. Everyone went to visit and talked about love. Thor, this kid, is still quite smart. After the banquet, he took Jane Fortes directly to see the queen. There was no pause at all. Sif was so angry. Tony and other onlookers who were eager to watch the fun were quite dissatisfied with the result. The boy wanted to go and catch Thor, but after being beaten up by Pepper, he quietly accompanied Pepper to visit Asgard. After Qin Luo settled Long Ku and May Parker, he flashed to the side of Odin who was in depression. Qin Luo couldn't help laughing in his heart when he saw Odin's appearance. Brother Qin, what do you want to talk to me about? Seeing Qin Luo, Odin showed a smile that made him cry and said, I have something to do. Brother Odin, please help me arrange a quiet place. It's better not to have people passing by. I have a lot of insights recently and want to retreat for a while, Qin Luo said with a serious face. Retreat? Must it be at this time? The Dark Elves. I know what you are worried about. The Dark Elves Vanguard Suicide Squad is almost here. Just pay attention to it. It will take some time for them to launch a large-scale attack. It's enough for me to feel, even if I can't get out. Aren't there still people in the hero apartment? With Johnny and Gu Yizai, are you still afraid of what will happen in the future? Qin Luo interrupted Odin before he finished speaking. Hearing this, Odin felt a little relieved. He always thought that everything would be fine with Qin Luo, and almost forgot about the other strong men in the hero apartment. With the three father-level people, even if Qin Luo didn't take action, those Dark Elves couldn't make any waves. Okay, then Brother Qin, come with me. Odin stood up and took Qin Luo to a valley. The area of Asgard is not small, and this valley can definitely be called a hidden place. And the power contained in the surroundings is also more intense than other places in Asgard. This is the place where the Asgardians practice their divine power. I will seal it off during this period. Brother Qin can feel it with confidence, and no one will disturb him. Odin said confidently. Yes, I'm ready to break through now. Maybe there will be some noise. Please notify others. Brother Odin. Qin Luo nodded with satisfaction and looked at Odin beside him to remind him. Hearing this, Odin was shocked. Inexplicably, he recalled the devastating performances that Qin Luo had once performed. Cold sweat could not help but fall down his forehead. Odin couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, Brother Qin, please don't be too exaggerated. I don't have many requirements. Just don't tear down Asgard. What are you talking about? Brother Odin, I just have some insights. Not that much. Go and get busy. I'm about to start my retreat here. Qin Luo waved his hand, and then his figure flashed and appeared in the center of the valley. Sit cross-legged, embrace the yuan and guard the one. Looking at Qin Luo in such a state, Odin couldn't help but sighed. He suddenly doubted himself. Was it a mistake to bring Qin Luo to Asgard? After Qin Luo entered the state, he took out all the thunder attribute items that Lei Lingzhu had looted in the Asgard treasury. Now he wants to break through the great dark sky to the realm of the Heavenly Emperor. Although he could have broken through long ago, it is better to be well prepared just in case. If it weren't for the fact that the power of Thor's hammer has not been restored, maybe Qin Luo has already stolen Thor's hammer. The mind gradually relaxed. Qin Luo lifted his suppression of the breath of Thor. In an instant, Qin Luo was shocked. The powerful force spread from the wave force. It instantly spread throughout his body. At the same time, in Qin Luo's spiritual sea of consciousness, an ancient book appeared again. When he broke through to the great dark sky realm, this book appeared in the sea of consciousness. It's just that the last time there was a GSD, now it has disappeared without a trace. Suddenly the page of the book turned, came to the dark chapter of the great dark sky. Then an invisible force of thunder and lightning flashed. The page turned to the second page. An extremely ethereal voice rang in Qin Luo's ears. The long sword broke through the air, and the god came to the world. The blind eyes should have burst out endless darkness, but why is it emitting such a bright light? The majestic body stood between heaven and earth, the sound of thunder resounded through the earth, is this the fluctuation of light? Waves secret book thunder and lightning chapter, middle chapter, boom. As the sound of reciting the book disappeared, the world and the spirit continued to vibrate. Qin Luo's eyes went dark. The next second, a dazzling white light flashed, and the dazzling thunder and lightning filled the whole world, turned the whole world into daylight. It was at this moment, the thunder attribute items around Qin Luo, including the thunder spirit pearl, all turned into ashes, and turned into pure lightning power into his body. Instantly, the sky and the earth changed color. Boom! A thunder fell and directly sank into Qin Luo's body, and the wave force began to completely transform into lightning waves. Lightning fell towards Qin Luo like rain. The terrifying power made the whole Asgard tremble. Odin felt the powerful power of thunder and lightning before he walked back to the bedroom. He staggered and almost fell. Chapter 437 Thunder and Lightning Feast. An accident? Odin looked at the direction of the valley with tears in his eyes. The heart that had just been put down was immediately lifted up. This kind of earth-shattering movement made Nima feel a little bit. Chapter 64. The entire planet has been shrouded in darkness. The Dark Elves returned and chose this planet directly. The original inhabitants of the planet have become food for the Dark Elves. They have been nourished by flesh and blood. The entire Dark Elf race has become restless. They are an extreme race in themselves. Now that they have a great hatred, the breath of the sacred ether particles of the race has appeared in Asgard. These Dark Elves are almost unable to suppress the murderous intent in their bodies. However, the Dark Elves still did not act rashly. They are very clear about the power of Asgard, and they are also aware of the power of Odin. Of course, they don't know that Odin is already old and dying, otherwise, he would have killed him long ago. Now they are waiting for an opportunity to completely take revenge. According to the prediction of the Great Elder of the Dark Elves, the 9 stars are connected, and the Dark World is not far away. As long as they wait until that time, the power of the Dark Elves will surge. At that time, they will seize the ether particles and use their magical power to cover the entire universe in darkness. Their Dark Elves will be the most noble and powerful race in the world. To be honest, the Dark Elves don't look good, but they have beautiful ideas. They want to turn the universe into a dark world. Let's not talk about whether the reality gem can really accomplish such a feat. Even if the reality gem can, how can the Dark Elves have the ability to do it? Do they really think that the 5 gods are just heating dry rice? As soon as they started, the universe fell into darkness. After that, those gods noticed it and could kill them all with a slap, leaving nothing behind. Malekith, the leader of the Dark Elves, he looked at the crazy tribesmen below, and his heart was inevitably a little excited. He really wanted to see the Dark Elves restore their former glory. The Dark Elves went from being the overlords to being the dogs that lost their homes. Only they themselves knew the pain and sadness. But now he has no way and no confidence to deal with Asgard. which once expelled them. Even though they can no longer bear the fire of revenge in their hearts, they have to endure it for the sake of safety. Chief, go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Chief. I can't hold back any longer. I'm going to use the heads of the Asgardians as toilets. Chief, kill Asgard. Restore our former glory. The Dark Elves, who couldn't hold back any longer, knelt in front of Malekith, their eyes burning like flames. Seeing his people like this, the fire that had been suppressed in his heart burned again. He couldn't help but look at several elders of the Dark Elves. These elders were the best of the Dark Elves. Not only were they strong, but they were also quite smart. Chief, now is not a good time to act. According to our calculations, there are still 3 days before the 9 stars will align. If we act now, our previous preparations may all be in vain. Odin, the old immortal, is not an easy character to deal with. The Great Elder stood up at this time and spoke with a serious expression. Yes, the Great Elder is right. Chief, please be patient. The remaining 2 elders also stood up at this time and echoed the Great Elder. I know what you said, but now the ether particles have appeared in Asgard. Do you think Odin doesn't know that we can feel the existence of the ether particles? Odin will definitely do something to the ether particles, such as sealing them. At that time, once the ether particles are sealed by him, the opportunity for the 9 stars to align will be missed. Then we will have to wait for thousands of years again. Do we have such a long life to wait? Malekith lowered his head, and there was a tyrannical breath hidden in his eyes. The 3 elders felt that it was difficult to breathe at this time. As the new king of the Dark Elves, Malekith's strength has reached the level of a father. They can't resist at all. Besides, our people have been patient enough. If this continues, they will go crazy. Think of a way, Malekith said, retracting his momentum and sitting back on the throne quietly. With his chin in his hand, he looked at the 3 elders quietly. Not only Malekith, but the entire Dark Elf race could not help but focus their eyes on the 3 elders. Instantly, the 3 elders were sweating. They were not fools, and they naturally knew that the purpose of Malekith's doing this was to attract the attention of the tribesmen to them. When Malekith came to power, they had caused a lot of unpleasantness before. It was normal for them to be drawn to the fire now. The 3 elders looked at each other and saw solemnity in each other's eyes. If this matter is not handled well, they will be torn to pieces by these crazy tribesmen. Time passed by minute by minute. Cold sweat slowly slid down the foreheads of the 3 elders. Suddenly, a gleam of light flashed in the eyes of the 2nd elder. He bowed respectfully to Malekith and said, Chief, I think we can send some death scouts to Asgard to cause trouble. We don't ask for any results, as long as we can make Asgard chaotic and make Odin have no energy to seal the ether particles. When the time comes, we will wait until the 9 stars are aligned and then attack in one fell swoop. We will definitely be able to kill those guys in Asgard. As soon as these words came out, Malekith's eyes lit up slightly. The rest of the Dark Elves also became restless. One by one, they rushed forward, excited to become the death squad for this attack. These Dark Elves are not afraid of death. It's just that long-term repression has made them crazy. Instead of being swallowed by crazy thoughts here, it's better to go to Asgard and go crazy. Okay, that's it. Malekith stood up and shocked the powerful momentum. The restless tribesmen calmed down a little. Soon, under the arrangement of the 3 elders and Malekith, 500 Dark Elves death squads stood in front of them. These people's faces were full of excitement and excitement. Point 5 The remaining tribesmen looked at these people eagerly, their eyes full of envy and jealousy, as if it was such an honor to die. Warriors, go kill, release your anger and let Asgard know how powerful we are. Don't be afraid of death. I will avenge you. Kill. More than 500 Dark Elves roared in unison. Then, under the arrangement, they took the lead in leaving the Dark Elf race and went to Asgard. And Malekith took the remaining tribesmen to the next planet. Now the Dark Elves still need to use killing to wash away their irritable mood. Chapter 436 Fluctuation Middle. Secret Book Middle. Thunder and Lightning Chapter Qin Luo felt the malice QS naturally came from the Dark Elf clan. With the improvement of strength, his perception became stronger and stronger. It is no longer the same as before. Now it's not just him. As long as he is in a position that is about to be in danger, he can still sense the malice. Chapter 65 As a result, they were all driven back. Unable to face Odin's order, Thor and Loki could only accept it. After entering the Asgard treasury, Qin Luo was immediately attracted by the dazzling array of treasures. Wow, Odin is really worthy of being the Lord of the Nine Realms. He has a lot of collections. Some things even caused a slight fluctuation in the ghost mark. Chapter 434 Sweeping the Treasury. The God King bleeding. The Asgard treasury is not like what is shown in the movie. It is empty, with only the eternal fire and a few props. The real Asgard treasury can definitely be called a dazzling array. To be honest, Qin Luo really has a feeling of being dazzled. With the strong feeling of the ghost mark, he involuntarily walked to an ice blue box. There are extremely magical patterns on the box. Although the box has been sealed by magic, it still cannot stop the chill it exudes. Just approaching, Qin Luo felt that the temperature around him had dropped to a certain extent. Ordinary people might freeze to death just by approaching the box, let alone taking it. This is the legendary ice box, right? Qin Luo stretched out his hand, ignored the sealing magic, pointed at the ice box and said, "Yes, the ice box is the treasure of the Frost Giants. It took a lot of effort to defeat the king of the Frost Giants, and even paid the price of an eye," Odin said with a look of emotion. Qin Luo looked at Odin, who was selling misery, and a trace of mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Don't talk nonsense. The king of the Frost Giants asked you to pay the price of an eye. That guy had a hard time dealing with Thor and the others, and he could still ask you to pay an eye? Don't think I don't know that you dug out your glasses to exchange for Runas's wisdom." Hearing this, Odin's face froze, looking at Qin Luo's eyes full of surprise, but more of a touch of fear. He suddenly felt that he was completely naked in front of Qin Luo, and there was no secret at all. But Odin quickly adjusted his mentality. He shook his head helplessly and said, "It seems that I am really old. After so many years, my memory has become confused." Qin Luo couldn't help but give Odin a thumbs up. Good guy. He is worthy of being the God King who has lived for thousands of years. He is so thick-skinned that he can still talk nonsense seriously even after being exposed in front of him. Qin Luo was too lazy to argue with Odin. With a thought, the frost box was directly put into his inventory. Through perception, Saya was very interested in the frost power in the frost box. Qin Luo would naturally not let go of anything that is beneficial to ghosts and gods. The power of ghosts and gods is equal to his power. Seeing Qin Luo take the frost box directly, Odin closed his one eye slightly. Out of sight, out of mind, he knew that his big bloodletting today was definitely not going to run away. Source of wisdom? Something that increases wisdom? You can give it to Hulk, Plague Boar, Rakshasa. Are you interested in playing with it? Take it. Rumetal. There are still a lot of stocks. Storm Sword. It's not suitable. Forget it. Take it. I want the eternal fire and the skull of the fire giant. You don't have to worry about Ragnarok. Heart of Darkness? My goodness. There must be tens of thousands of them. No wonder the Dark Elves hate you so much. I took them all away. Qin Luo seemed to be shopping in a supermarket, and he took away the things he liked. There was no politeness at all. These things were all things that ghosts and gods could sense, or things that were useful to people in Hero Apartment. There were also many useless things, but Qin Luo took them away just because he liked them. Odin looked at the treasury that was gradually becoming empty in front of him, and his teeth were almost broken. At the same time, his head felt dizzy. Odin thought he was not a stingy person, but he couldn't stand his own small treasury being emptied by others. But he was helpless. If you can't beat them, it's useless to talk about reason. It was he who agreed to let them enter the Asgard treasury. He agreed to Qin Luo's request at the beginning, but he really didn't expect Qin Luo to be so impolite. Thor, Loki, you two bastards, wait for me, and see how I deal with you. This is all for you. Odin covered his chest, kept cursing in his heart, and still had to show a calm look on his face. After sweeping almost half of the Asgard treasury, Qin Luo stopped sweeping. The main reason was that the remaining things were of no value to him. For example, some bright products were basically useless to him. Qin Luo looked at his enriched inventory and nodded with satisfaction. Okay, that's all for now. I'm going to eat. You should study the Dark Elves. It's better to solve those toys as soon as possible to avoid more dreams at night. After saying that, Qin Luo's figure flashed and disappeared in the Askr treasury. He didn't invite Odin to leave together. Qin Luo knew Odin's heart must be bleeding, so let him be sad. There is no way. He is so considerate. Haha. Odin walked in the treasury. His steps were extremely slow, and the sad atmosphere was too conspicuous. Alas, suddenly a long sigh came from behind Odin, and the queen came over. Without speaking, she just gently pressed Odin's shoulder to comfort him. Frigga. Odin looked at the queen and whispered her name. Everything is worth it. Aren't Thor and Loki more important than these external things? The queen said softly, although she was also distressed that the Askr treasury was swept by Qin Luo. But she was not like Odin. In her opinion, no matter what treasure it is not as important as Thor and Loki. Odin naturally knew what kind of person his wife was. Alas, after a long sigh, he said, forget it. Forget it. Who made me promise Qin Luo that vampire? Let's get ready. The reality gem in the human woman's body should be taken out. Those guys in the dark are probably ready to move. Well, I know. After the queen said that, she got up and left the treasury to prepare things to separate the reality gem. Queen Frigga is not a vase. Her magic power is strong. It is not too difficult for her to separate the reality gem and Jane Fortes. It's just a little troublesome without hurting Jane Fortes. Finally, he took another look at his own treasure house. Odin's figure flashed and disappeared from the spot and returned to his bedroom. Now he needs quiet very much. Compared with Odin, Qin Luo was very happy to return to the banquet. At this time, everyone was eating enthusiastically. Most of them were still very accustomed to the food of Asgard, not to mention Ganata. This girl is simply taboo-free. Qin Luo's return made the atmosphere of the banquet rise to a climax again. But just when Qin Luo wanted to taste the cooking skills of the god of cooking in the fairy palace, he suddenly felt a strong malice. A sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 435. The restless dark elves are on a fringe planet somewhere in the Nine Realms. Chapter 66. From childhood to adulthood, there were only a few opportunities to abuse Thor like this. Loki had his fill. All the frustration and depression during this period were vented. After being beaten for more than 20 minutes, Thor, who was almost like a pig, finally couldn't bear it anymore. With a wave of his hand, Thor's hammer flew out through the broken window and landed in Thor's hand. Seeing Thor pick up Thor's hammer, Loki couldn't help but twitch his eyes. He paused for about half a second, then he turned around and ran. That speed. Rabbits are his grandsons. All kinds of clones and illusions were used. Just kidding. If he didn't run at this time, he would be unlucky. However, Thor knew Loki too well. A large area of lightning was thrown out, directly breaking those clones and illusions. It didn't take much effort to catch Loki. Thor, what are you doing? I was just helping you unleash your potential. Feeling the increasingly strong power of Thor on Thor, Loki said in a panic, his face full of fear. Haha, then I really have to thank you very much. Thor grinned, and the Thor's hammer in his hand emitted a dazzling lightning light. Chapter 433. Asgard treasure house. The night fell quickly. Everyone was already at the artificial lake of the apartment. It looked like they were going out for a trip, especially the women like May Parker. Wow, with those big and small bags. If you know, you will think they are going to travel and fight by the way. And if you don't know, you will think they are going to stay in Asgard for a long time. Tony, what do you want to do? Surfboards, beach chairs, and more than a dozen sets of armor. What on earth do you want to do? Qin Luo noticed what Tony brought at this time, and couldn't help but complain. However, Tony ignored Qin Luo, but just gave Qin Luo a big roll of his eyes to let him pay attention. The most prominent ones among the crowd are Loki and Thor. One of them turned into a pig-headed man, with a face as swollen as a fat-head fish. The other one was burnt all over, and exuded the aroma of barbecue from time to time. After Loki was caught by Thor, he was electrotherapy for nearly 2 hours. It was almost 3 rare. If Qin Luo hadn't stopped him in time, Loki would have been at least 5 rare. If it weren't for this guy's frost giant bloodline, the apartment could have started the feast right now. Everyone has no problem, right? If there is no problem, we are ready to go, said Qin Luo, who was wearing a baseball cap, and took out a small flag. I don't know why, for such a scene, Only this outfit is the most suitable. Although May Park and others don't know the meaning of Qin Luo's doing this, there is no way. Some feelings are only known by the dragon people themselves. Uncle Qin, then I will summon the Rainbow Bridge. Seeing that everyone had no problem, Thor came over and spoke vaguely. Forget about the Rainbow Bridge. Because of your Rainbow Bridge, I don't know how many ground maintenance workers have become rich, Qin Luo said, turning his head to look at Guyi beside him. Before he could speak, Guyi shook his head helplessly and said, I know. As Guyi's palm flipped, a huge spark portal appeared in front of everyone. The other side of the spark portal was the entrance to Asgard's Rainbow Bridge. Heimdall, who was still closing his eyes, felt the fluctuation of space and suddenly opened his eyes. As a result, he saw a group of people stepping out of the portal. Mr. Qin Luo, you came by yourself? Why didn't you summon the Rainbow Bridge? When Heimdall faced Qin Luo, he looked quite nervous. Others didn't know, but he knew Qin Luo's brilliant record and terror too well. You are always spying on our Heimdall, right? Qin Luo raised his eyebrows and looked at Heimdall and said meaningfully. Hearing this, Heimdall's blood almost cooled down. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but in the end he couldn't say anything. He knew very well that in front of such a big man, lies and sophistry were purely suicidal, so he nodded resignedly. Haha, relax, don't be so nervous, the past is over, just don't peek anymore. Qin Luo smiled and patted Heimdall on the shoulder and said, Heimdall breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this, and his back was soaked with cold sweat. Brother Qin, you came too suddenly, and my welcoming team is not ready yet. Odin came over with a dozen people at this time, and said with a complaining look, Thor, why didn't you notify? How did you become like this? Just when Odin wanted to scold Thor, suddenly, he saw Thor, who looked like a pig, and Loki, who was in a charcoal state beside him. He, as a father, almost didn't recognize his son. Nothing, father of the gods, I just had a little conflict with Loki. Thor scratched his head awkwardly and said. Odin's mouth twitched. What does it mean to be so embarrassed? Isn't this the most realistic portrayal? At this time, the three warriors of Asgard standing behind Thor had a rather strange look on their faces. They were naturally very happy to see Thor, but Jane Fortes beside Thor forced them to focus their attention on Sif, whose face gradually became stiff. At this time, Sif's beautiful big eyes looked at Thor as if she was looking at a scumbag. The resentful coldness made the three warriors of Asgard around them shudder involuntarily. They knew very well that they must not get involved in this situation now. Otherwise, it is very likely that innocent people would be affected. With Thor's perception, he could naturally feel Sif's gaze. Fortunately, his eyes were sealed now, and with Odin's obstruction, he avoided Sif's gaze. He couldn't help but secretly groan in his heart. Jane Fortes looked at Sif. Jane Fortes was not unfamiliar with her. Jane Fortes seemed to be swearing allegiance at this time, hugging Thor's arm. Seeing this scene, Sif's hair exploded. She bit her back teeth tightly, and there was a blazing fire in her eyes. Seeing this, the other people in the apartment all showed meaningful smiles. I never thought that I could eat such a melon in Asgard. Two women fighting for a husband is so interesting. Ahem. In order to avoid a conflict as soon as they met, Odin coughed decisively and said, Brother Qin, let's go to eat first. The god of chefs has prepared everything. Qin Luo waved his hand and smiled and said, you arrange the others first. I'm not in a hurry to eat. Let's go and fulfill our promise later. Hearing this, Odin was stunned for a moment, and the people in Asgard and the hero apartment were also a little stunned. Then Odin seemed to react to something, and a helpless smile appeared on his face and said, I understand. I will take you to the treasury later. After that, Odin led everyone to the temple of Asgard. The scenery along the way made everyone in the hero apartment feel a little dazzled. It must be said that the architecture and scenery of Asgard are first class. It also has many characteristics. After arranging for everyone to have dinner, Odin took Qin Luo to the Asgard treasury. Thor and Loki followed him. The former wanted to avoid the war between Sif and Jane Fortes, and the latter wanted to see the icebox to see if there was a chance to steal it back. Chapter 67. Hawkeye is different. He has a lot of ties now. Qin Luo said that the boy went directly to find his fiancée. Let May Park and Ganata go back to prepare. After Long Kui was free, Qin Luo called Thor, Loki, Jane Fortes, and Wanda's two siblings to the study. Seeing everyone's puzzled eyes, Qin Luo didn't say much nonsense and said directly, "I called you here mainly to discuss something with you. The reality gem in Jane Fortes' body must be taken out. After all, her body can't bear it. It's a disaster to put it in her body. And the role of the reality gem is very important to Wanda. Her power is very compatible with the reality gem. In her hands, the reality gem can be used to the maximum extent. So, I want to take out the reality gem in Jane Fortes' body and give it directly to Wanda. Do you have any objections to this?" Hearing Qin Luo's words, several people were stunned. Their eyes couldn't help but look at Wanda and Jane Fortes. Unexpectedly, there was such a thing. Jane Fortes and Wanda looked as if they had suddenly realized something. It's hard to take into account that there is always an inexplicable attraction between them. It turns out that their powers are similar. "I have no opinion, Uncle Qin. You can arrange it however you want. I'm just an ordinary person, and this kind of treasure will only be a disaster for me." Jane Fortes spoke first. When she spoke later, she couldn't help but smile bitterly. Seeing that Jane Fortes had no opinion, the Thor brothers had even less opinion. Wanda had a feeling of not receiving rewards without merit, and as for Quicksilver, he was only happy in his heart. Qin Luo's attention made him very happy. "Don't think too much, the reality gem is the best match for you. After you have it, your power will definitely go to the next level." Wanda nodded when she heard it, and her somewhat tangled expression returned to normal. "Don't worry, I, as an uncle, can't take my niece's things for nothing. Let me tell you a secret. Your future is destined to become the god of thunder and lightning like Thor. When we go to Asgard, I will give you a good thing, enough to make you no weaker than Thor, who has not yet realized his true power." Qin Luo looked at Jane Fortes and said with a smile, "This is the compensation plan he prepared. After all, they are family members, so naturally they should be treated equally." "Female Thor?" Loki couldn't help but exclaimed at this time, and a trace of envy flashed in his eyes when he looked at Jane Fortes. Chapter 432, Stimulating Thor's Potential. Jane Fortes was dizzy when she walked out of the study. She couldn't believe what Qin Luo promised. It was a complete dream. Loki also doubted his life. He used to look down on Jane Fortes, but there was no way Loki was just that kind of person. Except for a few people who could convince him, he mostly acted like a superior being. But now he has to face Jane Fortes. What ability does his brother Thor have? Loki knew it too well. Seriously speaking, if his own conspiracy is not counted, 3 or 5 Lokis are not Thor's opponents, and now his cheap sister-in-law also has to have abilities that are not weaker than Thor. Loki really doesn't know how to describe his feelings. If someone else said that Jane Fortes would be given a power that is not weaker than Thor, he would never believe it, even the Wild Father Odin. But the person who said this happened to be Qin Luo, and he really couldn't find a reason to deny it. When he thought of the scene of the future husband and wife double thunder, he felt a chill all over his body. He shivered involuntarily. Relatively compared to the previous one, Thor's mood at the moment is not so beautiful. Qin Luo's words just now made him fall into a state of self-doubt. He hasn't awakened his true power yet. Is he really that bad? But he clearly has mastered the power of thunder and lightning. In addition to Qin Luo's words making Thor a little unconfident, Jane Fortes' upcoming strength also makes him feel a little uncomfortable. Of course, he is not uncomfortable with Jane Fortes becoming stronger, but he can't accept that Jane Fortes has become as strong as himself, or even stronger than himself. Deep down, Thor is still a bit chauvinistic. The fact that his woman is stronger than himself will give him bringing extra pressure and shame. The 3 of them returned to their rooms with their own thoughts. After Jane Fortes came to her senses, she went to help Thor and Loki pack up. In fact, there was nothing to pack. Most of them were specialties from Earth, and the gifts Jane Fortes prepared for Thor's parents. After all, in this situation, it was basically no different from meeting the parents. With the help of Maypark's little pepper, Jane Fortes really prepared a lot of gifts for Odin and Queen Frigga. The value was quite high, and they also had different Earth characteristics. Loki, do you think I'm really that bad? Why do my father and Uncle Qin say that I'm like a baby who hasn't gotten out of the cradle? Thor looked at Loki, who was in a daze beside him, and couldn't help asking, haha, in their eyes, who isn't a baby? Loki sneered and said with a unique snotty expression on his face, I'm serious, and I don't mean to compare with them. I just don't understand why I clearly mastered the power of thunder and lightning, but they still say that I don't have the real power. I've heard this more than once. Thor looked at his hands and said in a deep voice, what, god of hammers? Loki looked at Thor, and an expression that asked for a beating immediately appeared on his face. However, when Thor heard this, the corners of his mouth twitched. Veins on his forehead were faintly bulging. Seeing Thor like this, Loki's expression of asking for a beating became even stronger. He seemed to think that it was not enough to provoke Thor, and he went up and punched Thor, who was already angry. Bang! With a dull sound, Thor was knocked down by Loki's punch, and the corners of his mouth were bleeding. Loki, you bastard! Thor stood up with a roar, and just wanted to raise his hand to summon Thor's hammer. Loki said suddenly, see if you are the god of hammers. Now no one has sealed your divine power. Come and try you without Thor's hammer. Thor froze instantly upon hearing that. He looked at the floating Thor's hammer, and finally gritted his teeth and gave up the summoning. However, at this moment of daze, Thor was punched out by Loki again. Loki's movements were very fast. He immediately rushed up and kicked Thor in the air again. Crack! With the sound of broken glass, Thor flew out through the window. At this moment, Loki felt that his whole body was unblocked. It was as if he drank iced Sprite in June, and it was really cool. His heart was flying. After Loki also jumped out from the edge of the window, Thor could barely stand up. Such a big commotion naturally attracted a lot of people's attention. The idle people in the apartment poked their heads out one after another, and when they saw that Thor and Loki were fighting, they immediately started to watch the excitement. Jane Fortes also poked her head out. Seeing such a scene, she sighed helplessly and continued to pack up. She was also quite clear about the problems between her man and her brother-in-law, so Jane Fortes was not particularly surprised when the two of them fought. Oh, it's really interesting, but I don't know if Thor can be stimulated by Loki. It's probably a bit difficult if he doesn't trigger the passive ability of wanting a father. Qin Luo leaned against the window and muttered to himself while looking at Thor, who was beaten unilaterally below. There is no way. Now Thor can't mobilize the power of Thor without Thor's hammer. He can only rely on his strong physique to compete with Loki. But Loki is so thief that he just confronts him head-on, using all kinds of illusion magic to greet Thor without any cost. Chapter 68. Not to mention the little spider who has not fully grown up yet. You know, I don't like to be forced. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to go. Qin Luo shrugged his shoulders and looked at the little spider and said with a smile, don't go? How could the little spider choose not to go with such a good opportunity? He could only say with a sad face, Brother Qin, I promise, I promise. Isn't it enough? Peter Parker, I parasitize you is definitely the most strong decision in my life. I really give up, Venom said in a breakdown, and then his head drilled out of the little spider's body. The ferocious look seemed to want to eat the little spider alive, but the little spider knew that he was in the wrong, and he didn't dare to look at Venom at all. He could only look at the sky in silence. It's what you deserve. Who asked you to help this kid cheat? You wanted to get away with it at the beginning. I really want to blind your heart. The blisters on your feet are all gone by themselves. Just accept your fate. Qin Luo looked at Venom with disdain and said. Venom heard what Qin Luo said, and immediately lost his power, and obediently retracted into Spider-Man's body. Tony, you didn't even think about it. I will definitely go this time. Suddenly, Pepper's slightly angry voice came. Qin Luo looked curiously, and saw that in the corner, Tony was smiling and saying nice things, while Pepper was angry. Seeing this, Qin Luo knew without thinking, Tony was planning to leave Pepper to look after Stark Company, but it directly irritated Pepper. Tony really has no temper for Pepper now. He said all the nice things, but Pepper had only one attitude, that is, he must go with him. Tony couldn't help but look at Qin Luo for help, but it's hard for an honest official to judge family affairs. Qin Luo is not an honest official. It's better not to get involved in such things. Pepper is quite hot-tempered when she gets angry. Seeing Qin Luo's erratic eyes, He didn't mean to help him at all. Tony couldn't help but curse him in his heart as a disloyal bastard. Then he continued to say earnestly, "Potts, Stark Industries is thriving now, and we really can't leave you as the backbone. If you leave, the company is likely to collapse. How can you bear to see such a situation? Stark Industries is also your hard work." Obviously, the offensive of good words didn't work, so he decisively chose to start to sell misery. Tony was quite confident that his words would definitely convince Pepper. After all, Pepper has always been soft-hearted. However, this time Tony miscalculated. Pepper sneered and said disdainfully, "What does the collapse of Stark Industries have to do with me? It's not my company, Tony. I'm just your subordinate now. There is no room for negotiation on this matter. My armor has been almost built. Don't think I don't know. Red Queen has already told me that I will definitely go. It's useless for you to say anything." Pepper had a cold face, and Tony rolled his eyes after swallowing her words. The point is that he couldn't refute anything. What she said was right. Stark Industries didn't belong to her. As for the armor, he had planned to give Pepper a surprise. Unexpectedly, Red Queen leaked it. Tony looked at Qin Luo again. His eyes were full of resentment. "Don't look at me like that. Red Queen has her own ideas. I can't control what she wants to do or say. Instead of blaming me, you might as well go find trouble with Jarvis. He must have told Red Queen about this." Qin Luo waved his hand to distance himself from the matter. "You two, stop making a fuss here and make a fool of yourself. I'll just work hard for a while. I won't go to this battle. Leave Stark Industries to me. Although my ability is not very good, it will definitely not be a problem to take care of Stark Industries for a while." At this time, Norman Osborn stood up and said with a helpless smile on his face. Then he turned around, looked at Qin Luo and asked, "Mr. Qin Luo, can I not participate in this battle? I really don't have any feelings about fighting." The last battle. Seeing that Norman Osborn wanted to explain something, Qin Luo waved his hand decisively and said, "Okay Norman, I know that everyone in the apartment is free. If you don't want to go, don't go. It just so happens that someone needs to take care of the house." As for Pepper and Tony, when they heard Norman's words, the former was full of joy and looked at Tony with a proud look. The latter was full of helplessness. The main reason why Tony didn't want Pepper to go to Asgard was that he didn't want her to be involved in danger. As for Stark Industries, it was just an excuse. After a while, everyone's discussion ended. In the end, except Norman Osborn, everyone participated. "Okay, then let's get ready. We'll set off tonight." The code name for this operation is the First Team Building of the Hero Apartment Residential Committee. Chapter 431 Everyone's Preparation, Compensation Plan. After hearing the name Qin Luo gave to this operation, everyone was speechless. But everyone has become accustomed to Qin Luo, this weird naming maniac. Decisively forget the name of this operation and do what you have to do. Pepper, Tony and Norman went directly to Stark Industries. After all, it is a leading industry, and there are quite a lot of things that need to be handed over. It may not be possible to complete the handover in one day, so we must hurry up. Spider-Man and Green Goblin were going to get some equipment, such as spider web launchers, new pumpkin bombs and the like, but they were stopped by Qin Luo. Under Qin Luo's assignment, the two went to sort out the exercises first. Prepare a month's worth of exercises, and then you can return more and make up less. After the Green Goblin looked at the little spider beside him with resentment, he had no choice but to follow the action. After Norman finished editing the exercises, he felt the importance of the exercises, so he made a copy for his son. The result is imaginable. The little Green Goblin almost went crazy. Although his learning ability is not bad, it is not as good as that of Spider-Man. The little Green Goblin can't solve the bones that Spider-Man can't chew. The child was so worried that his hairline rose a few points during this period. The friendship between the two almost capsized. In the end, with the help of Spider-Man, the friendship was stabilized. Old Carter and Johnny went back to Hell. Hell was in a state of disrepair, and the two big guys were leaving suddenly. They must arrange it well, otherwise, who knows what those demons can do. Ancient One also left. Although Kamartaj has nothing to do recently, the guy Benedict Cumberbatch is about to leave. In this operation, Ancient One plans to bring Benedict Cumberbatch with him, just as a graduation exam. As long as Benedict Cumberbatch performs well in this operation, Ancient One is about to abdicate and come to the hero apartment to live. This has been agreed upon long ago. Daredevil has nothing to say. His law firm has been on the right track for a long time. He has no cases recently, so he can follow. Dr. Banner returned to his laboratory. He has a lot of things for his recent experiments. It is natural to handle them well if he has to leave for such a long time. Otherwise, if there is any accident, he will collapse. As for his relationship with Hulk, it can really be said to be 1,000 miles a day. The two of them are not much different from brothers now. Hulk wanted to integrate into Dr. Banner's body several times to make him become Dr. Green. All of them were rejected by Banner. Banner felt that Hulk was Hulk, whether it was separated from his soul or not. Since Hulk had been born, he would stay. Anyway, it is not a bad thing for the two to be one. Hulk was really moved by Dr. Banner and was about to cry. At the same time, he secretly made up his mind not to drag Dr. Banner down. He secretly discussed with Qin Luo that he decided to separate from Dr. Banner after finding a suitable body. However, Hulk had already made up his mind that he would protect Dr. Banner for the rest of his life. Qin Luo would certainly not refuse Hulk's request. Moreover, Qin Luo had already found a new body for Hulk, and was just waiting for that person to come to Earth to cause trouble. The Captain and Natasha's sisters had no relatives or friends, so they were ready to leave soon. They sat in a daze, bored, waiting for the time to come. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69. Plus, their hatred for Asgard will surely lead them out in full force. That will be a good opportunity to wipe them out in one fell swoop. Chapter 429. Odin's good plan. Looking at Odin with a serious expression and tone, Qin Luo couldn't help rolling his eyes. This old guy is really a thief. He talks better than he sings, and what a good opportunity to eliminate the Dark Elves. To put it bluntly, isn't he using Qin Luo and the others as knives? Of course, what Odin said makes sense. The Dark Elves may have many concerns when facing other enemies, but when facing their old enemy Asgard, it is estimated that it will be difficult for those Dark Elves to remain rational. At the beginning, they were almost urinated blood by Asgard, and their tribesmen suffered heavy casualties and were expelled to the Dark Land. After so many years of recuperation, they have barely recovered their vitality. Speaking of which, Asgard is really not the opponent of these Dark Elves now. After all, Asgard has experienced various events and has already experienced a fault phenomenon. Odin is old and powerful, but his body can no longer support him to fight. He sealed the powerful fighting force that was once second only to one person. Thor and Loki have not grown up completely, and their strength is quite limited. The sons of the God King are all like this, not to mention the 3 warriors of Asgard under his command. It's okay to deal with ordinary enemies, but it's good enough to survive against the Dark Elves. Odin, if you want us to help you get rid of your biggest trouble, just say it directly. We are all foxes in the mountains, so don't play tricks with me. Qin Luo looked at Odin, rolled his eyes, and interrupted his endless chatter. Brother Qin, I admit that I have some selfish motives, but what I said is true. The Dark Elves will only attack Asgard when they attack. Don't say more about the same thing. We will take action on this matter. I will arrange it here, and you will arrange it there. It's not easy to get a group of guests here, so the treatment can't be too bad, right? Qin Luo said meaningfully. Don't worry, Brother Qin. I will go back and make arrangements. The god of brewing and the god of cooking will always be at your service. If necessary, they will serve you in bed. Stop. Who do you think I am? Qin Luo interrupted Odin again, carefully glanced at Maypark and others who were talking happily, and then said with a serious face, let's talk about this later. You go back to Asgard first. After we have made the arrangements, we will naturally let Thor summon the Rainbow Bridge. After that, Qin Luo turned and left. Only Odin was left to struggle on the spot, wondering whether he should prepare to serve him in bed. In the end, Odin shook his head and left the spot in a flash. With his power, he naturally did not need the rainbow bridge to teleport. Ahem. Qin Luo walked to the happy crowd, coughed lightly and said, "Everyone, I have something to tell you." "What's the matter? What did Odin say to you? Is there any weird guy who wants to cause trouble again?" Tony immediately became excited when he heard the words. The others also looked at Qin Luo with bright eyes. In the battle just now, they didn't even have the chance to fight. They were easily knocked out by Qin Luo. Now everyone basically has extraordinary powers, except for Norman Osborn, who was lying flat. The rest of the people are still quite enthusiastic about fighting, but with Qin Luo around, they have very few chances to fight. But they can't say anything. After all, the enemy Qin Luo faces is really beyond their scope. Apart from anything else, the battle with death alone is definitely not something that rookies like them can participate in. Qin Luo saw the performance of the crowd, and his heart was moved. It seems that because of him, these people have fought too few times, and they are obviously about to be suffocated. Why not let them fight this time? It's not a bad thing to vent the desire to fight. Speaking of it, the Dark Elves are not that powerful. The strongest one is just the leader of the Dark Elves. And now in his apartment, there are 3 father level, Ancient One, Johnny and Old Carter. Any of them can deal with the leader of the Dark Elves, and Ancient One can easily abuse the other party. Qin Luo is not sure about Long Ku's specific strength, but judging from the looming power on her body, at least it will not be worse than Ganata, who is half a step into the father level. There is nothing to worry about. There is definitely a little danger, but it should not be fatal. As long as no one dies, it will be fine with blood skills. Qin Luo thinks it is very reliable to let the people in the apartment fight alone. It just so happens that he can take advantage of this time to digest the power of the Sword God and break through the great dark sky to the Heavenly Emperor realm. Now among the 4 ghost swords, only the Heavenly Emperor has not broken through. It is really a bit uncomfortable to keep suppressing it. Hey, Qin Luo, what are you in a daze for? Hurry up and say it. Seeing Qin Luo in a daze, Tony urged impatiently. You are right, there is indeed a trouble coming. The Dark Elves will attack the people in the apartment. Their main target is the reality gem in Jane Ford's body. Hearing Qin Luo's words, Jane Ford's face changed slightly, and there was a flash of worry in her eyes, and at the same time there was a bit of guilt. She is not a fool. After hearing Qin Luo's words, she naturally understood that the trouble was caused by herself, and the trouble that can make the entire hero apartment go out is enough to prove the strength of the other party. Feeling the unexpected eyes from the people around, Jane Ford gritted her teeth and stood up and said, Uncle Qin ... Uncle Qin, I think I'd better leave first. It's best not to bring any trouble to the apartment. There is no need to provoke a strong enemy for me. Don't talk nonsense like this. What kind of strong enemy is a group of Dark Elves? You joined the hero apartment, which means you are one of us. If I can't even protect my own people, then there is no need to mix with it. Qin Luo waved his hand and interrupted Jane Ford's words domineeringly. Actually, Loki was about to say something when he was glared back by Qin Luo. Uncle Qin, let's solve this matter by ourselves. The Dark Elves were once enemies of Asgard. I know how powerful they are. You naturally don't take them seriously, but these people are extremely troublesome and will definitely affect others in the hero apartment. I don't want to cause trouble to the people in the apartment anymore, Thor said with a serious face at this time. The trouble has already happened. Just face it. And it was your father who asked me for help just now. Why don't you talk to your father in person? Qin Luo looked at Thor and said with a bit of ridicule in his tone. Thor's face froze immediately, and he pursed his mouth, wanting to say something but finally shutting his mouth. Chapter 430 The first team building of the Hero Apartment Residential Committee. Seeing the embarrassed look on Thor's face, everyone couldn't help laughing. And under Thor's feet, a 3-bedroom and 1 living room apartment had almost been deducted. Okay, stop talking nonsense. Our battlefield this time is not on Earth, but in Asgard, the hometown of Thor and Loki. The time will be at least 3 to 5 days. And at most a month. It depends on your time. Qin Luo did not look at Thor again, but looked at everyone and spoke. Hearing that the battle was not on Earth and that they had to leave for such a long time, some people were calm, But some people were not so calm, like Roxanne and Tony. They all have their own jobs, especially Tony. Stark Industries can't be left alone. Although he didn't manage it much, he knew that with Pepper's current personality, it would not be an easy thing to leave her alone to manage the company. If you go directly to Asgard, there may be some trouble. Brother Qin, can I ask for leave? Hearing this, Spider-Man's face turned red with excitement, and he raised his hand and said, "Okay, but you have to bring exercises. Fighting is fighting, and learning can't fall behind." Qin Luo waved his hand nonchalantly. No, two Spider-Man and the venom in his body almost cried out in unison. Even though Spider-Man is used to the intrusion of exercises, he is still tortured, especially in this precious opportunity to go to an alien planet. There is another thing to mention. Spider-Man's exercises are no longer the 3-5 series. There is no way Spider-Man's learning ability is too strong. The fact that he can persist in the 3-5 series until now is enough to prove its value. The exercises Spider-Man is doing now are jointly written by Banner, Tony, and Osborn. The difficulty is not acceptable to normal people. It is no exaggeration to say that even some talented people who have achieved academic success find it difficult to complete these questions. Chapter 70. The appearance is extremely perfect. The beauty of imagery is not enough to describe it. It completely surpasses all the women Qin Luo has seen. Whether it is May Park who ate the slippery fruit, or the eccentric Ganata, or Wanda and the goddess of death, they are all dimmed in front of Long Ku. It is definitely not the same as the actress surnamed Liu showed. The difference between the two is a million miles. Sister Long Ku. Although he was sure in his heart, Qin Luo couldn't help but ask tentatively. The smile on Long Ku's face was even stronger and he nodded. "Brother, I thought I would never see you again," Long Ku said softly, and at the same time stretched out his hand and put it on Qin Luo's face. Ganata below saw this scene. His expression turned cold, and he humphed with his hands clasped and pursed his lips. Wanda and Maypark's expressions at this time were also full of complex colors, and the male compatriots headed by Tony looked at Qin Luo with envy and admiration, and envy and jealousy. But these people also paid the price for their eyes. The soft flesh around his waist was destroyed. Johnny was fine. After all, with the strength of a father, he could ignore this little damage. But Tony couldn't. If there weren't so many people around, he would have screamed. Qin Luo saw Long Ku's tearful look, and naturally understood that she had regarded him as her favorite brother under the intervention of the system. It was inevitable that there was a little disappointment in his heart. After all, it was not a good feeling to be treated as a substitute. However, after seeing Long Ku's beautiful face, this disappointment could be ignored. "What else do you want?" Qin Luo took Long Ku from the sky and landed in front of everyone. Chapter 428. Odin's Reminder. Dark Elf Qin Luo looked at the eyes of the women. There was no longer the guilty feeling in his heart. Some things, if you do them more, you will get used to them. Qin Luo naturally took Long Ku's hand, came to the front of everyone and introduced her generously. "Her name is Long Ku. She is the sword spirit of this magic sword, and she is also my sister." Hearing Qin Luo's words, the eyes of Maypark and the other girls changed again, especially Ganata. She was the one who could not hide her emotions the most. Hearing what Qin Luo said, a smile appeared on her face again, and the aggrieved look just now disappeared without a trace. Although Qin Luo did not touch her or admit their relationship, after all, there was still the parasite that had not been solved, and Qin Luo could not help but feel a little bit unacceptable. But in her and everyone's hearts, she was already Qin Luo's. As for Tony and others, their eyes were full of meaningful smiles when they looked at Qin Luo, including the old guy Odin, with an expression of "Who are you kidding?" Qin Luo decisively ignored it. Long Ku looked at the people in front of her with some curiosity. In her opinion, these people were all from outside the domain, not from the Central Plains. Of course, she didn't care about these. Compared with the Locking Demon Tower, as long as it was a normal place, it was enough to be called a paradise. Maypark immediately came over, took Long Ku's other hand and started to greet. People around also gathered around. Long Ku did not show any pretentiousness to the enthusiasm of the crowd, and talked to them openly. However, when she was talking about some things about the world of immortals, Qin Luo suddenly discovered that what Long Kua said would be blocked, and neither Long Kua nor May Parker and others felt anything unusual. They were still talking normally. Only Qin Luo discovered this problem. After thinking about it, Qin Luo understood that it was probably some kind of shielding protection mechanism of the system. It was to prevent Long Kua from leaking something that did not belong to this world. As for what May Parker and others heard, Qin Luo simply did not ask again. Anyway, it was something that was forcibly smoothed out, and there was no point in listening. Just as Qin Luo was watching everyone talking with a smile, suddenly, he felt the corner of his clothes being pulled, and when he looked back, it was Odin with a serious face. "Sister, you should get familiar with everyone first. They will be our family in the future. I will go and talk to Brother Odin about something." Qin Luo rubbed Long Kua's little head and said with a smile. Long Kua nodded obediently. Surrounded by the crowd, they went to the place where the banquet was held. Qin Luo followed Odin to the artificial lake. "Tell me, Brother Odin, what happened that you have to come here in person?" Qin Luo looked at Odin and said with a smile. Odin's expression was still serious. After staying on Qin Luo's face for a few seconds, he sighed helplessly and said, "Brother Qin, to be honest, my useless son and his girlfriend will bring you a lot of trouble." Qin Luo was stunned for a moment. Then he reacted, patted Odin on the shoulder and said, "You mean the Dark Elves, right?" "Sure enough, nothing can be hidden from you." Seeing Qin Luo directly mention the Dark Elves, Odin couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, "It's just a group of small characters hiding in the dark. What do you have to worry about? If they dare to come, don't think about going back." Qin Luo said with confidence, "Just kidding, let alone the Dark Elves. The kingdom of heaven is just a matter of a few swords." Qin Luo really didn't understand what Odin was worried about. The Dark Elves are not necessarily more powerful than the kingdom of heaven. Could it be that he felt guilty for causing trouble for the hero apartment? This shouldn't be the case. Odin is not a shameless person. But Odin looked at Qin Luo's appearance and immediately showed a look of wanting to say something but stopping himself. Qin Luo couldn't help rolling his eyes when he saw this and said, "Brother Odin, can you please just say what you want to say? Don't be so fussy here, it's boring." "Then I'll be frank, Brother Qin Luo, the Dark Elves are different from those in heaven. This race is very despicable, and their personalities are even more cruel and violent. In your dragon country, there is a saying that it is easy to dodge an open spear, but difficult to guard against an arrow from the dark, and the Dark Elves are the kind of people who hurt people from the dark. After they know how powerful you are, they will definitely not choose to fight head-on, and they will certainly not come out in full force. They will become an ale hiding in the dark, and if they are not careful, they will leave a mark on you. Of course, with your current strength, you will definitely not take the Dark Elves seriously, but what about the other people in the apartment? They may not be able to avoid the assassination of the Dark Elves. Once something happens to the people in the apartment, I really don't know what to do," Odin said with a worried look on his face. "Since it's so troublesome, I'll just go find them and kill them." Qin Luo still had an indifferent look on his face, but his eyes were full of murderous intent. He would not let go of anyone who dared to threaten the existence of the hero apartment. "I'm afraid it's not that easy. They are best at hiding. Even if you can find their location, it is almost impossible to completely kill this race." Thinking back then, my father used all the power of Asgard, but he just drove them away, and didn't really kill them. Odin shook his head and spoke with an extremely serious expression. In fact, Odin still didn't understand Qin Luo's specialness. Apart from other things, the special attribute of the mind alone is enough to make the Dark Elves know where to hide. Even if they escaped to the depths of the universe, Qin Luo could pull them out. But seeing Odin like this, Qin Luo's heart couldn't help but move. This old guy must not come here to scare people. He must have some ideas. However, Odin, who has lived for thousands of years, always has some problems. He often doesn't speak in full, and first says a lot of nonsense, which makes Qin Luo a little unhappy. "Okay, since you came to me, you must have some ideas. Tell me." Qin Luo did not give Odin a chance to talk at length, and spoke directly. Hearing this, Odin's face became serious. "I want to invite the people in the apartment to stay in Asgard for a while, or take Thor and that girlfriend back. I believe you also know that as long as the ether particles in that woman's body are there, the Dark Elves will come. Chapter 71. Divine Shadow Hand. When switching weapons, the sharpness of the weapons can be increased. These two passive skills may not seem to be that great, but in fact, the bonus is quite significant. Apart from other things, the special blessing brought by the extreme sword art alone can be called powerful. Those special blessed characters are at least top-level sword saints. They are called sword saints, but in their fields, they have already played a weapon to the limit. For example, when Qin Luo used the giant sword, his strength was definitely at the level of the sword god. What is God's help? Qin Luo's current release of those skills is like God's help. This breakthrough is not just two passive skills, there are also two active skills that Qin Luo has mastered. They are Extreme Sword Art Breaking Sky / and Extreme Sword Art Instant / Extreme Divine Sword Art Breaking Sky / at the enemy at an extremely fast speed, and finally cause the sword energy to explode. You can charge and attack, which can increase the skill damage. At the same time, different weapons will have different blessings. Extreme Divine Sword Art Instant / use the flying sword dedicated to the Divine Sword Art to attack the enemy in front, so that the sword energy enters the body and explodes, which is extremely powerful. Among the Extreme Divine Sword Art series of skills, in addition to the Second Awakening, the damage of the Extreme Divine Sword Art Instant / is the most powerful. The power can even be equal to the damage of the First Awakening, and the key point is that the speed is extremely fast. Now Qin Luo has only mastered these two skills initially. It will take some time to master them. However, the Divine Demon Sword and the Fipe and Divine Armor have excellent sword power. As long as Qin Luo absorbs and digests them, he will soon be able to complete the mastery of these two skills, and even further master the Second Awakening. Extreme Divine Sword Art 10,000 swords return to the origin. Just when Qin Luo comprehended the skills, the sword intent on his body was once again raised to a higher level. That kind of extreme sharpness. Odin and others could no longer look directly at Qin Luo. Johnny wanted to rely on his special attributes to see more of Qin Luo's changes, but as soon as his eyes met, his soul fire was injured by the sword intent of the extreme swordsmanship. He was so scared that he quickly retracted his gaze and dared not look at it anymore. Chapter 427, God Sensing. Long Ku appeared in the Endless Universe, the exclusive death domain of the Goddess of Death. She was pretending to heal her wounds and slowly opened her eyes. She looked at the earth, and a gleam of light flashed in her eyes. At the same time, a graceful arc appeared at the corner of her mouth. I haven't contacted the monarch for a long time recently. I didn't expect his power to reach a new level. I really look forward to the scene of the monarch sweeping away those guys who are in the way. The Goddess of Death seemed to be excited while muttering. Her face gradually turned red, her breathing became rapid, and her pupils changed a little, looking like a little heart. Infinite Kingdom, Annihilation Kingdom, Eternity, who had just arrived at these two places, turned around suddenly. Looking in the direction of the earth, his expression became extremely wonderful. Negative emotions such as fear, hatred, anger, jealousy, etc. kept switching in his eyes. It almost made him crazy. At the same time, he became anxious. The stronger Qin Luo was, the more serious the problems his plan would face. It was hard for him to imagine whether his plan could still affect Qin Luo. If not, what should he do? Could it be that he, the head of the five great gods, had to rely on the breath of a human to survive? Thinking of this, Eternal's eyes began to become crazy. With a flash of his figure, he rushed to the location of the other two gods more quickly. Infinity and Annihilation also felt the changes in Qin Luo. It's just that the former was indifferent, and the latter was a little interested, but it was just a little interested, and there was no special change. The Devourer of Planets, who was rushing to the earth, suddenly stopped. He looked at the distant earth with complicated eyes. He kept cursing Qin Luo for being abnormal in his heart. It's only been a short time, and his strength has actually reached a higher level. Originally, the Devourer of Planets was not sure to deal with Qin Luo. Now he is even more uncertain. If he continued to move forward, what if Qin Luo beat him up? How could he establish his father's majesty in front of Ganata in the future? As for beating Qin Luo, he was not so conceited. Unless he reached 100%, he had not really eaten enough for so many years. Master, I remember that 2 planets will be born in the nearby star field. The newly born planets must be extremely pure and taste very good. It's hard to find them. The Silver Surfer obviously noticed his master's entanglement at this time. Just now, through the Ancient One and the Ganata cosmic energy, he probably also sensed the changes in Qin Luo. As a subordinate, at the critical moment, he still had to give his master a step. Hearing this, the Devourer of Planets was happy, and looking at the Silver Surfer, his eyes were full of teachable children. Ahem, let's go and swallow those 2 planets first. I'm a little hungry, the Devourer of Planets said, and decisively changed direction and flew in the opposite direction of the Earth. A rare smile appeared on the metal face of the Silver Surfer, and he followed his master and began to return along the same route. On Earth, Qin Luo digested the newly acquired skills very quickly. After all, it was a system product. As long as Qin Luo met the conditions, it would not be difficult to master it. Of course, if he wanted to fully comprehend it, he would need the help of the God and Demon Sword and the Fang God Armor. As Qin Luo slowly opened his eyes, at first glance, he saw the changes in the ancient dagger in his hand. The powerful golden light made Qin Luo's heart surge. As an old player of the Ashes level, naturally, he understood that this sword has now reached the level of amplification of 15. He used to be a poor boy, and he dared not even think about amplification of 15. He could only watch those big guys have it. But what Qin Luo paid more attention to, it was the change in the power of the ancient dagger. Now the ancient dagger has completely exceeded the legendary level under the blessing. It has reached the same sub-god level as the God and Demon Sword, but it is relatively weaker. But as Qin Luo's strength increases, the ancient dagger will continue to strengthen. After all, this is the sword of the big monkey, which was originally amplified by 17. The amplification is something that becomes more powerful as time goes by. If it really reaches the amplification of 17, it may break through to the level of demigod in one fell swoop. Of course, Qin Luo has never thought about the mythical level. The limit of the ancient short sword is probably the demigod level. It is almost impossible to go to the next level, but this is enough. Qin Luo is already quite satisfied. Now his enthusiasm for the mythical level is not as strong as before. It is too strenuous to fish with this thing. Don't you see that the mythical fishing rod is still soaking in the lake? It is estimated that it is about to be covered with patina. Suddenly, a tender voice sounded behind Qin Luo. Brother, long time no see. Qin Luo stiffened when he heard the words, and turned around suddenly, and saw a gentle and fairy-like woman in a blue shirt. Chapter 72. Qin Luo stared at the 2 men. Through the weapons in their hands, Qin Luo instantly understood who the other party was. The 2 great sword gods in Arid, sword god Sadros, sword god Liang Yu. Suddenly the 2 fought each other. Neither of them used any overly powerful moves. They just fought with basic sword moves. But even so, Qin Luo could only understand the battle between the 2. After all, the sword intentions of the 2 have already been divine. It is not so easy to understand. Is there an end to swordsmanship? Suddenly Sadros spoke. He looked at Liang Yu with sharp eyes, and asked in a stiff tone. Hearing this, Liang Yu suddenly paused. The attacking branches suddenly stopped. There is a world of difference between masters. Because of this days, Sadros's magic sword Claris almost chopped off Liang Yu's head. Fortunately, at the critical moment, he put away the sword. What? My question distracted you? This is not like you. The sharp aura around him subsided as Sadros put away his sword, and he became easygoing. I just suddenly thought of some things in the past. The realm of swordsmanship. Liang Yu put away the sword and fell into deep thought. The realm of swordsmanship must be endless, but we have not yet realized what the next realm is. Haha, it seems that you have a deep understanding. The next realm of swordsmanship is really fascinating. I once entered that realm during sword practice. Although it was only a limited number of times, I can still feel its power. If I can completely break through to that realm before fighting Khan, I think I should have a better chance of winning. Lord Sadros, I sincerely look forward to your victory. Thank you, Let the matter of winning or losing go. Compared to this, the pursuit of swordsmanship is more important than anything else. The highest realm is more fascinating. Hey, that realm that doesn't even have a name. It's not so easy to reach. It may take a lifetime. Hey, you say, can we give this realm a name now, just like Sword Soul and Sword Saint? Liang Yu fell into deep thought again after hearing this, and after a while, he said, what do you think of Sword God? Isn't this a bit too high? You know, no one can be sure whether the realm of swordsmanship has an end, so what should the higher level be called? What's so difficult about this? Let's talk about it on that day. Liang Yu laughed. Haha, it's really like your style. As the voice fell, the sword intent of the two rose again. At this moment, the sword intent of the two people has undergone incredible changes. Chapter 426 Sword intent shocks the sky. Extreme God sword art plop, plop. The picture in front of him gradually disappeared, and Qin Luo's heart began to beat violently. The heartbeat was like thunder, and the people in the entire hero apartment heard it clearly. They didn't know what happened to Qin Luo. They didn't dare to go up and disturb him. May Park, Ganata and Wanda all looked at Qin Luo with worried eyes, with nervous expressions on their faces. But in contrast, the expressions of the four father-level gods were wonderful. Laymen watch the excitement, while experts see the doorway. Others can't see the changes in Qin Luo, but they can feel it. In their eyes, Qin Luo's sword mountain has risen from the ground, as if something terrible is awakening. The extremely sharp sword intent makes them feel uncomfortable all over, and even a glance at it makes them feel like they are being cut. Odin and Guyi looked at each other and saw incredible looks in each other's eyes. Has he broken through again? Odin asked tentatively. Isn't this obvious enough? Guyi said with a little complexity. It's only been a short time. To be honest, his speed of progress scares me. If it goes on like this universe may soon be unable to bear his existence. Odin shook his head, with an expression of indescribable fear. Maybe, at that time, I hope those gods can be honest. Otherwise, I am afraid that this universe will not be able to bear their battle. Ancient One's expression was no longer indifferent, and his face was full of sorrow. Alas, Odin sighed and said nothing more. Now he has no power to change anything about what will happen in the future. He can only watch it. Maybe after a while, he will not even have the opportunity to watch it. He can only pray that his children and grandchildren will have their own blessings. At this time, Qin Luo's thunderous heartbeat gradually subsided. The sword heart has completed the transformation. At this moment, Qin Luo felt that his sword skills have been sublimated in some way. It is not an exaggeration to say that the world has been turned upside down. If Qin Luo's swordsmanship was just powerful before, now, on the basis of power, there is a trace of divinity. There is a wider space. There is also a feeling of sudden enlightenment. Now he recalls the swordsmanship he used in the realm of Sword Saint. It is really like a child playing. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is unbearable. It seems to have felt the change of Qin Luo. The sword of gods and demons and the ancient dagger have undergone completely different changes. The sword of gods and demons emits soft light, and a beautiful figure gradually emerges on the sword. The big eyes of Kazilin look at Qin Luo with gentle eyes. The changes in the ancient dagger are quite wonderful. Originally, the ancient dagger emits a pink halo. Now this halo is getting deeper and deeper. Gradually it turns into a light gold. In the game of dungeon, after the strength of the weapon changes, the color of the appearance will change. Below 12 is blue and white, 13 and 14 are pink, and above 15 will turn into gold. Now Qin Luo's weapon has obviously reached the level of increase of 15 or more. Don't look at it as just rising 2 levels. The increase is stronger as time goes by. The change of these 2 levels can completely offset all the previous increases. Now the power emitted by the ancient dagger is no less than that of the sword of gods and demons next to it. It has to be said that the characteristics of the dungeon are still quite powerful. After the increase and enhancement reaches a certain level, earth-shaking changes can occur. This is really hard to do in the world outside the game. Qin Luo continued to comprehend the skills he gained after breaking through the sword god. Passive skills: extreme swordsmanship, shadow hand. Extreme swordsmanship greatly improves one's swordsmanship skills. and additional effects will appear when using some skills at the same time. When launching the Liuxin series of skills, the domineering armor of Sword Saint Buwanga will appear. When casting the jump slash after casting, the sword energy of Sword Saint Zilin will appear. When casting the fierce dragon breaking the sky slash, the hurricane of Sword Saint Xianbin will appear. When casting the broken army rising dragon attack, the slashing shadow of Sword Saint Aganzu will appear. When casting the phantom sword dance, the phantom effect of sword god Sajuros will be obtained. Chapter 73, Creak Creak. A slightly harsh sound sounded. The surrounding space was annihilated. It was not broken, but annihilated into powder. Seeing this, Guyi knew that his life was coming, and the space gem condensed at the center of his eyebrows. He immediately began to repair the surrounding space. However, under the influence of the power of the sword god, Guyi's repair was very difficult. She didn't dare to disturb Qin Luo. After all, Qin Luo was obviously accumulating big moves now, so Guyi had to grit her teeth and repair the space that was constantly annihilating bit by bit. At the same time, the purple lightning that was constantly condensing in the sky had completely condensed into shape. It looked like a snake but not a snake, like some kind of deformed giant python, and the power it exuded was also quite terrifying. This can be seen from Odin's slightly frightened expression. Facing such power, Odin now can't resist it, and it is unknown whether he can escape. Boom! Accompanied by the last thunder, the giant python composed of purple lightning fell from the sky, opened its mouth and pounced on Qin Luo. At the same moment, the sword god behind Qin Luo completely dissipated, and the sharp aura condensed into substance gathered on the ancient short sword, as Qin Luo gently pointed out with a sword. In an instant, the sky and the earth changed color. At this moment, time seemed to stand still, except for Qin Luo and Yang Eng. No one knew what happened. Anyway, everything returned to calm, and the purple lightning python disappeared without a trace. The cloudless sky looked as if it had never appeared. Everyone even wondered if they had hallucinations just now. Qin Luo let out a long breath, put away the long sword, and showed a relaxed smile on his face. He didn't look at the place where the lightning python disappeared. Instead, he walked straight towards the sword of gods and demons. Sword god, a sword has a god. Qin Luo knew he had succeeded. At that moment just now, with the help of the sword of gods and demons, Qin Luo completely understood the true meaning of the sword god's move, and it can be said that he has completely surpassed Li Zioyao's understanding of the secret method of the sword god. He had just fought with Yang Eng, and he won, and won thoroughly. He didn't know how Yang Eng would be affected, but he was sure that it would not be easy. As the black and white air just dissipated, the invisible flames around the sword of gods and demons began to slowly fade. The brilliance unique to the sword of gods and demons began to shine. The sword of gods and demons did not look particularly powerful, it just had a rather domineering appearance. But only the owner of the sword of gods and demons, the one who held it, would know what kind of terrifying power this sword contained. It is no exaggeration to say that if the power of the sword of gods and demons was completely unleashed, Qin Luo might not be able to withstand it. Even if he could withstand it, he would still be seriously injured. Chapter 425 Yang Eng was injured. Above the sword saint in the kingdom of Yang Eng was sitting on his throne at this time. His expression was indescribably ugly, and on his chest, a hideous wound could be clearly seen. If this kind of wound was not on Yang Eng, but on a human, it would be the result of the stomach being ripped open and the water flowing all over the ground. But Yang Eng didn't have those water. He was stretching out his hand, mobilizing his divine power, and constantly repairing the wounds on his body. It was just that the sharp breath left on the wound was like a maggot attached to the bone, which was very difficult to remove. Even Yang Eng couldn't completely expel it in a short time. Just now, he borrowed the power of annihilation and his own divine power to condense the thunder of annihilation to attack Qin Luo, in an attempt to completely destroy the birth of the god and demon sword. However, in just a moment, the power he mobilized was slashed by Qin Luo's sword. Not only that, the sharp sword intent actually crossed countless spaces and star fields and fell directly on him. This made Yang Eng very difficult to accept. He never thought that Qin Luo could hurt his body with just the sword intent. But the facts were in front of him, and he didn't want to believe it. And through this attack, Yang Eng keenly sensed that Qin Luo had become more powerful. After all, when Qin Luo used this trick to deal with the goddess of death, the power was like this. If Qin Luo could use this sword at that time, maybe the goddess of death would be defeated without the help of Jiger's power. Gritting his teeth, Yang Eng knew that the other party had already noticed his existence, and the other party's growth rate was beyond his imagination. His plan must be accelerated. Thinking of Yang Eng's fierce touch on his chest, the terrifying power of the gods spread out, and actually smoothed out the sword marks on his chest, just from his painful look. It was not so easy to complete this. Yang Eng's figure flashed and disappeared in his own country, and the clone went to the location of infinity and annihilation. Qin Luo came to the god and demon sword. He immediately felt a sense of heart-to-heart communication. This feeling was very strong, as if the god and demon sword was just a part of him. Buzz! The sound of swords rang out, and the god and demon sword flew directly into his hands without Qin Luo making any moves. The moment he covered the god and demon sword, Qin Luo only felt a shock all over his body, and the sword energy and sword heart in his body had very incredible changes at this moment. A steady stream of power poured out from the god and demon sword. It constantly merged into Qin Luo's sword energy and sword heart. The people around felt Qin Luo's changes and couldn't help but feel shocked. At this moment, Qin Luo seemed to have turned into a mountain in their eyes. To be precise, it was a sword mountain. The sword mountain stood tall and revealed endless sharpness. Gu Yi, who had barely repaired the space, saw this scene. His face turned pale. If the sharp breath in Qin Luo's body burst out, the entire Earth space would probably be divided into two. Gritting his teeth, Gu Yi made a decisive move, and the fire ring portal appeared around Qin Luo. The next moment, Qin Luo appeared in the mirror space. Fortunately, Qin Luo was constantly feeling and absorbing the powerful sword intent from the god and demon sword. The sword intent around him was almost restrained to the extreme. Otherwise it would be a foolish dream for Gu Yi to take Qin Luo into the mirror space. Now the sword intent in Qin Luo's body was just leaked a little, which was enough to cause Gu Yi's backlash. At this time, Qin Luo was completely immersed in the sword. Suddenly, a white light seemed to flash before his eyes. Two people stood not far from him. Rather than two people, they looked more like two swords in Qin Luo's eyes. Two swords with different sword meanings. One was extremely sharp, and the other was a sword that could make anything. Chapter 74. Maypark and others have retreated back to the apartment, except for Qin Luo. The godfather-level existences such as Gu Yi, Old Carter and Odin Johnny could not get too close. They were suspended in the air, looking at the god-demon sword condensed in the invisible flames, with complicated expressions on their faces. Qin Luo himself is a tiger, and the original sword is enough to be called a magic weapon. Now there is an even more powerful sword, and the word adding wings to a tiger seems to be unable to describe him. Gu Yi and others couldn't help but wonder in their hearts, after Qin Luo got this powerful magic weapon, when facing the gods again, will he be able to have overwhelming strength? Although they don't want to admit it, everyone already has the answer in their hearts. During this period, the god-demon sword did not attract any messy existences. Maybe it attracted some things, but when those existences saw Qin Luo's lineup, I'm afraid that as long as they are not fools, they will run away immediately. To godfather level, to top godfather level, and a Qin Luo who is comparable to a god. With such a luxurious lineup, I believe that unless you have a problem with your brain, you will not choose to get close, unless you think your life is too long. Boom. Suddenly, a strange purple lightning flashed across the sky and earth. This lightning chopped straight towards the god and demon sword. The speed was extremely fast, and the power contained was also extremely terrifying. Qin Luo couldn't help but frown when he saw it. Could it be the legendary Thunder Tribulation? But this is the Marvel world, not the fairy world. How could there be a Thunder Tribulation? The breath of the Thunder God spread involuntarily. The next second, Qin Luo's face changed slightly, and then his figure flashed and came to the front of the purple thunder flying at a high speed. Reach out and grab the lightning with your bare hands. After carefully sensing it, Qin Luo's face showed a sneer. Haha, you really can't stand me doing well. You almost succeeded in such a hidden sneak attack. After that, the power in Qin Luo's body burst out instantly, dispersing the purple thunder, turning it into a little arc and dissipating in the sky. The four people around were a little confused by the scene in front of them, but soon Guyi seemed to realize something. His face became quite gloomy. His mouth moved slightly, and he uttered two words: eternity. That's right, the person who made the move was no one else, it was Eternity, one of the five great gods. As for Qin Luo's existence, Eternity had long regarded him as a thorn in his eye. How could he easily watch Qin Luo obtain the Sword of Gods and Demons? As early as when the Sword of Gods and Demons began to merge, Eternity noticed this side and began some shameful little tricks. For example, the existence of the Father of Heaven in heaven. Normally speaking, the kingdom of heaven would not feel the breath of the Sword of Gods and Demons so quickly. But under the interference of Eternity, that's another matter. Speaking of it, the power of the kingdom of heaven was originally under the command of Eternity. Chapter 424 Confrontation. The real sword god Eternity and the kingdom of heaven have many things that cannot be explained. In short, the kingdom of heaven finally betrayed Eternity. It's just that it didn't betray on the surface. Yang Eng has always wanted to get rid of the power of the kingdom of heaven, but in order to maintain his image, he had to find a suitable opportunity. Qin Luo's appearance gave Yang Eng this opportunity. He did almost nothing else, just transmitted the breath of the Sword of Gods and Demons into the kingdom of heaven. There is no need to say more about the rest. In a way, Qin Luo can be regarded as a butcher knife for Yang Eng. Originally, Yang Eng thought that relying on the current kingdom of heaven was enough to cause some trouble to Qin Luo. After all, the power of the kingdom of heaven is not small. There are a lot of 4- and 6-winged angels, and there is also a top-level father. Although it is definitely not an opponent of Qin Luo who can defeat the gods, but as long as it can cause some trouble, it will be good. If it can prevent the birth of the Sword of Gods and Demons, it will be even better. And in his opinion, Qin Luo's current situation is definitely not as good as it seems on the surface. Death is still recovering, and Qin Luo must have left some hidden injuries. At that time, the thorn in the eye is removed, and the thorn in the flesh is also pouting, which is simply the best of both worlds. It's a pity that Yang Eng still underestimated Qin Luo, and he didn't expect that Qin Luo was now in full blood. As a result, Qin Luo easily took care of the kingdom of heaven. It was even solved in just 3 or 2 moves. And he also absorbed the power of faith that he coveted. Yang Eng saw this scene, and his back teeth were almost broken. He kept cursing the Father of Heaven for being a waste in his heart. Originally, Yang Eng didn't want to attack Qin Luo directly so early. After all, some of his plans still need to be improved. But after feeling the increasingly powerful power of the God and Demon Sword, Yang Eng couldn't help but take action. The purple lightning was his masterpiece. It contained the power of annihilation. If it hit the God and Demon Sword at this time, for the God and Demon Sword, it would definitely be a big blow. The God and Demon Sword can be said to be at the most critical moment now. If this tremor is not good, it will definitely leave some flaws. At that time, Long Kui may be affected. Qin Luo didn't react at first, and thought it was the legendary thunder tribulation, but as the breath of the thunder god spread, Qin Luo keenly discovered that those lightnings contained a very good power of annihilation. And there is also the power of the gods. The power of fluctuation is very sensitive to power, so Qin Luo immediately distinguished that the eternal power contained under the power of annihilation. This is why the scene just now happened. If it weren't for the power of fluctuation, Qin Luo would have been deceived by it. As for Guyi, she is very familiar with the power of eternity, but she was just confused by the annihilation power on the surface. It was not until Qin Luo destroyed it that she felt the breath of eternity. Boom! A thunderous sound rang out in the sky again. Qin Luo looked at the gradually condensing purple lightning. The ancient short sword in his hand immediately turned into the 8-direction Han sword. A sharp breath emanated from Qin Luo. Sword God! Exclamation mark! The sharp sword energy around Qin Luo condensed into white light. The familiar sword god of the god realm appeared behind him again. This time, the sword god was obviously more condensed than the last time he dealt with death. At the same time, the moment the sword god appeared, The god and demon sword that was about to be completed also made a burst of sword sounds. Black and white energy surged out of the magic sword. They magically merged around Qin Luo. The black and white energy condensed in the hands of the sword god at a speed visible to the naked eye, turning into a black and white long sword. The pressure emanated by the sword god with his hands forming a sword finger and the sword god holding a long sword was simply incomparable. The sharp ore doubled several times. Chapter 75. The so-called power of faith is basically a special kind of spiritual power. If such a magnificent power of faith can be absorbed, it will definitely be of great benefit to the spirit and soul. Of course, Qin Luo does not intend to absorb it himself. Although the power of faith is good, the side effects are also quite large. There are many distracting thoughts in the power of faith. If Qin Luo absorbs it, it will take at least 100 or 80 years to digest it. And if it is not good, Qin Luo may be affected by those distracting thoughts. The soul will no longer be pure because of this. But then again, if Qin Luo cannot absorb it, can the ghosts and gods not absorb it? They don't care about the soul. Anyway, they are just a collection of some negative emotions. Those so-called distracting thoughts are simply too childish for them. A drop of ink will affect the integrity of a piece of white paper, but will it pollute the septic tank? Ancient One. Old Carter, help me look after the god and demon sword. I'll be back soon, Qin Luo said. His figure flashed and disappeared directly from the spot, rushing into the constantly collapsing heaven. Old Carter and Ancient One were stunned for a moment after hearing this, and then they understood Qin Luo's intention. The two looked at each other, and their figures flashed and appeared where Johnny, May Parker and others were. Everyone looked at each other, smiled helplessly, and at the same time looked at the busy figure in the kingdom of heaven. At this time in the kingdom of heaven, Qin Luo stood in countless powers of faith. The wave power in his hand continued to spread, forming invisible barriers, imprisoning the constantly dissipating powers of faith. At the same time, Qin Luo summoned the 7 ghosts. The evil god Brashu is still being repaired and has not returned. If Qin Luo uses its mark to absorb these powers of faith, it will definitely speed up his repair. However, Qin Luo did not plan to do so. It didn't matter whether Brashu came back earlier or later. After the 7 ghosts appeared in front of Qin Luo, they all became very respectful, at least on the surface. Of course, there were also cold eyes, such as Kazan. Qin Luo didn't care. After all kinds of things, these ghosts had shown signs of submission to Qin Luo. Of course, this also includes Jiger's contribution. But no matter what, Qin Luo is about to become a qualified Dark King. It is just around the corner to completely control these ghosts and gods. Everyone, the power of faith should be a good delicacy for you. Qin Luo waved his hand and pointed at the power of faith trapped by the wave force. The 7 ghosts and gods heard this, and their eyes showed desire. Facts have proved that Qin Luo was right. These powers of faith are also tonics for them. Everyone, please help yourself. Hearing Qin Luo's words, the 7 ghosts and gods did not hesitate and scattered directly, rushing towards those powers of faith. The 8 immortals showed their magical powers, and countless powers of faith entered the stomachs of these ghosts and gods crazily. Qin Luo originally wanted to transfer some power of faith to integrate into Jiger's mark, but was rejected by Jiger, and conveyed a message to Qin Luo. That is, he would not accept Qin Luo's offerings before he could not be completely summoned. Qin Luo was helpless about this, and did not force it. That night, countless people had almost the same nightmare, and at the same time, they felt something was missing in their hearts. The devout faith collapsed. Chapter 423, Mental Power Rises, Triggering Thunder Tribulation. The power of faith was quickly absorbed into the body by the 7 ghosts and gods. There is almost no illusion in the bodies of these ghosts and gods now. There is almost no difference from the entity. Of course, these are still in the state of clones. In order to summon their entities, Qin Luo must at least reach the level of summoning the gate of the underworld. Besides, even if he can summon them now, Qin Luo will not choose to summon them. There is no way, with his current strength, he can't suppress the complete ghosts and gods. Even the weakest ghosts such as Kajia and Saya can beat him now. The ghosts and gods have gained a lot of benefits after absorbing the power of faith. Of course, the biggest winner is still Qin Luo. Qin Luo is not called for nothing. After the power of faith was absorbed and fused into pure spiritual power by the ghosts and gods, Qin Luo decisively drew 70%. Faced with his behavior, the ghosts and gods were already used to it and didn't care at all. For them, Qin Luo was still lucky this time. Q only extracted the refined spiritual power, and the rest of the messy power and some telekinesis didn't move at all. For them, pure spiritual power is a small part, and those messy powers are the real benefits. After the ghosts and gods absorbed all the power of faith, Qin Luo's spiritual power has reached a higher level. Now, as long as he wants, he can completely break through to the realm of the Emperor of Heaven and master the two powerful skills of the Thunder Wave Sword and the Thundercloud Demon Pestle. But now things haven't been dealt with cleanly, and the God and Demon Sword has not been fused, so Qin Luo had to suppress the feeling of breakthrough. With the disappearance of the power of faith, the Kingdom of Heaven has also disappeared. Now the place where the ghosts and Qin Luo are is completely turned into a void. The surrounding space is slowly repairing. It won't be long before this place will be merged with other spaces, or completely disappear in this world. Of course, Qin Luo didn't care too much about these. He put away the ghosts and gods who were still not satisfied, and returned to the hero apartment in a flash. The hero apartment was no longer as lively as before. In addition to the natives, the Asgardians led by Odin had returned to Asgard. The hellish ghosts brought by Old Carter also returned to Hell. There will be no heaven in this world in the future. Seeing the look of the crowd, Qin Luo spoke directly without waiting to ask, although Wo Shan and others had expected the result. But when they heard Qin Luo say it in person, they couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. The feeling of empty chatter made them very uncomfortable. Brother Qin, there is something I want to tell you. Odin came over at this time and said with a serious expression, is it urgent? If not, wait for me for a while, my sword is almost finished. Qin Luo glanced at the God and Demon Sword that had begun to merge and spoke. Odin nodded, didn't say anything, just stepped aside, and looked at Jane Fortes and Thor with unfriendly eyes. He was really angry about this rebellious son. If it weren't for Qin Luo and so many people, Odin might have demonstrated what it means to be a kind old father. Qin Luo came near the sword of gods and demons, feeling the powerful force emanating from it. A smile rose involuntarily at the corner of his mouth. The others had no intention of dispersing. They were all full of curiosity about the sword of gods and demons, especially those who had longed for it, such as Thor and Loki. They really wanted to know what it would be like after the sword was completely completed. Time passed by minute. The pressure emitted by the sword of gods and demons became more and more powerful, and the fusion was almost coming to an end. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.